Chicken Show.
Hello, and everybody is welcome to our very delayed episode 56, Poultry Free, now with more gluten. I'm Tony G of the Dog and Chicken Show, obviously, and we are chickenless once again tonight. He is watching from a motel room where I can only assume he's by himself with a stuffed animal he's made into a bit of a girlfriend. That's what I'm envisioning anyway. I hope it's true. If it's not, don't tell me. I'd rather just keep that mental image in my head. I am, of course, joined tonight by Tom of Tomfoolery and Phil from the KOE Nation. I will let you guys introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Tom.
Damn. That was hard-hitting as fuck, Phil. He lays down a gauntlet for introductions. I hope you can try to top that.
Knocked it out of the park there, Tom. Welcome, one and all, to the Dog and Chicken Show, episode 56, Poultry Free, Revenge of the Poultry. I am the devilishly handsome outlaw himself, your king of extreme, Phil KOE, and we are here to dive into all the main topics of the day. We're going to be hitting all the hard subjects. And tonight, folks, we are joined. We got Tony G of Dog and Chicken Show. We've got Tom of the Tomfoolery Show. We got Phil KOE of KOE Nation. What else could you possibly need? Later tonight, also as sort of a main event, we will be getting into the president's speech at the end of the RNC convention and perhaps a little analysis. That's what you come here, folks. So, all that being said, let's get right into it, gentlemen.
All right. Where the hell do we want to begin? Because there's a lot of bad shit going on in the world today, and we're going to try to maintain composure while discussing it. So I laid a gauntlet down. What would you guys like to start with tonight? We are shooting from the hip. I had absolutely no fucking time to prepare for anything tonight. So, yeah, we're winging it, babe.
Well, obviously,
I want to start with sex robots.
Yes.
Fucking right. You know what? I will find a sex robot story as we start talking about that. We'll get into that later.
You will. Okay. I was going to say, this is such a slow news week. There's really just nothing to talk about. I mean, there's I've been struggling to think what could possibly be discussed. I mean, especially me, Tony, and Tom, the three of us are always at such a loss for words. So
yeah, 2020 is a really hard year to start a podcast like this where you're talking about current events, because there's really 2020 has just been really slow and boring and not a lot going on. So bear with us, guys. Stuff will pick up eventually, and we'll get into that when it does.
Worst apocalypse ever.
It really is. I mean, honestly, like,
would not apocalypse
if you look at all the previous worldwide terror apocalypse type scenarios, I mean, Y2K was way more interesting. Hale-Bopp's Comet. I mean, Bieber Fever, for fuck's sake. The Mayan apocalypse. So many great apocalypses.
The Beanie Baby craze. I don't know how we
barely survived that one. That one was rough.
Now, if it interests anybody, Ivanka Trump is speaking right now, so the ratings just popped a little bit more everywhere. So, that's just the way it is. But I could see her in the future running for something. I don't know what, but something. Tom, what's your thoughts on that, good sir? No. I can see politics is a weird game. Politics is a very weird game. You never know who's going to jump in and who's going to take off. But so, as we dive deeper into this week's particular topics, Tom, anything you'd like to mention? Like I said, it's such a slow news week. I just don't know if you got anything.
Well, we could talk about the Kenosha shootings, I suppose.
That. Oh my God. Yeah. Plural.
Yes. Yes. So, I mean, there was initially the first one where the guy leaned into his car and got shot 7 times in his back. We covered that on my show as well. More information has come out. The guy did have a knife on his person. The police were called not because he was breaking up a fight between 2 women, which is what I heard the first 20 times what I read the first 20 times I read an article, but instead it turns out that actually he was at his baby mama's house and he was trespassing and she wanted him to leave and he wouldn't leave. So she called the police on him and that's why they were there. They tased him. He wouldn't go down. He went to his car. They shot him. But after that, protests started. And there was apparently an armed militia that showed up. Some are saying that actually the police called them and deputized them to walk around with guns in their hands just in case anything happened. And next thing we know, we see a 17-year-old boy running down the road with a mob of 15 people chasing him, saying, "Get him. He shot somebody. We're going to beat him up. We're going to get him." And then he trips and falls. Numerous people attack him with skateboards and guns and fists and all sorts of stuff. And he shot numerous people, killing, I believe, 4 people
2.
and injuring.
Was it 4?
Was it? I know it may have been injured 2 and killed 2.
The first person he killed was somebody that tried to throw a Molotov cocktail at him.
It was a Coke.
As far as we know, as far as he knew, it was a Molotov cocktail.
Sure.
But he gets this thrown at him, turns around, shoots him in the head. He calls 911. They say, get to... Now, this is the part where it gets really weird. He calls 911, says, "What do I do?" They say, "Get to the police."
Okay.
On the way, he does trip. Somebody tries to hit him in the head with a skateboard. That guy gets center mass. So that's 2. The third guy first has his hands up, and then he goes to draw. When he looks away, gets shot in the bicep. And then he goes to the police with his hands up, rifle in front of him. Yep. They tell him to get out of the way. And it's the weirdest gun. Like, they didn't know this was get the fuck out of the way. And he ends up just going home and turning himself in. Wasn't it the next day?
Real quick, he didn't turn himself in. They went to his parents' house and arrested him there. But there are videos of him with the police earlier, talking to them, socializing with them. They were giving some of the guys who were armed, some of the random guys walking around with rifles in their hands. The police were giving them water bottles and stuff. You can hear guys saying, "Hey, we appreciate you guys. Like, you're so helpful. We're glad you guys are out here." But this is a 17-year-old kid. And somehow he was deputized to walk around with a rifle in his hand.
That's my question. Like you said, he was arrested the next day, 20 miles away at his home in Illinois. It's not in Kenosha. It's another town in Illinois. Yep. That was my first. Like, I watched the video again before we started about an hour ago, and essentially what I'm sure it's the main video everybody's probably seen. It's, you see him like walking. And people are chasing. Eventually, he's on the ground. You see people swarming him, and shots are fired. So he'd already shot somebody previous to that video starting. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah. So the one where he's running away, when they're yelling, he shot somebody. I haven't seen the first video.
Hadn't.
So
the first video, basically, you see this kid in sandals and a rifle slung in front of him, running like his life depends on him. And this, now, again, from everything I've read, it was a Molotov cocktail. And enough due time, we will know exactly what it is. That's why I always say reserve a little bit of judgment on these, because more context always enlightens. So this dude's running at him, throws the Molotov cocktail, misses, turns around, gets shot.
If it
was
a Molotov cocktail, wouldn't there have been some form of fire and explosion?
All of the action happened behind a truck. Unfortunately, you don't see any of it. You just see guy run up behind it. All the action, all the stuff that a court would want to see happens behind the truck. Unfortunately, and
this is the first.
He starts. Yeah, this is the first video. And then he apparently gets on the phone, calls, and the 911 as established, he did call them. And they tell him, we can't get to your location, get to the police. And at that point, people descended on him and he moved. And that's when the second video starts.
I wanted to pop this up quick. Kenosha is in Wisconsin, not Illinois. That is correct. His name is Kyle Rittenhouse, and he
allegedly.
is from. Yeah,
Let me just throw that.
He is from Antioch, Illinois. He's from Illinois. It's like 20 minutes or something away from Kenosha. So he doesn't live in Kenosha. He's not from Kenosha. He's from Antioch, Illinois. So that's why this gets really strange. Like you mentioned, Tom, this is a 17-year-old with a rifle.
Now,
and he has been, like you're saying, if he's been interacting with the police and they've officially or unofficially deputized him, this is still a 17-year-old kid. This isn't somebody on their way home trying to avoid danger, and danger just finds them. He actually had to leave his home to find the danger. Now, he was part of a Facebook militia group, which has since been taken down since this has happened. Obviously, understandably so. Now, I'm not going to try to smooth over any of these details. I don't think anybody's in the right here. There's no happy ending here. It's all just bad. Like, the people that are swarming him probably had a lot of fear seeing a guy with a rifle. The kid with the rifle is a kid with a rifle. So, of course, he's scared seeing people swarm him. This is a bunch of people being scared for their life, reacting as such. And it's the same thing for cops with minimal training or years of experience. When you're put in a situation where your life is on the line and you have a weapon, your primal instinct is going to be to defend yourself. The fact that he was there alone was a mistake. He shouldn't have been there. He's a 17-year-old kid. His life is pretty much fucking ruined from this.
If I can add just an extra wrinkle to this is one that I've been trying to mull over in my mind. He's 17 years old, and I'm a firearms nerd. I know about in the state of Illinois, in order to own any firearm, you have to have an FOID, firearm owner identification card, and I don't know how they would go about issuing that to a 17-year-old. So this is I think he's probably this is unfortunately whether he should have had the rifle or not there, it was what saved his life in these instances. So don't see him going away on any major, like they overcharged him, clearly overcharged him when they charged him with murder. You're going to have a real hard time with that one. He is probably going to have some sort of misdemeanor firearm charges. I just don't see there's any way of getting out of that. You were clearly
forget about that. The fact is he's now killed people.
Yeah.
It's that doesn't go away. That's a part of your life now, forever and always.
It's like when my father was teaching me to drive, and he said a very good lesson. You're driving a bullet. This thing has the power to kill people. Even if it wasn't your fault at all, you'll still never forget the day you killed somebody. And so that's really unfortunate that it had to come to this. And yeah, there's dead people, and that's never good. And
no.
Whew,
He took junior police cadet training as well. I don't know if he did or not. That I'm not 100% sure on. But from what I could tell, he was very interested in becoming a law enforcement agent of some form, because obviously he was on the Facebook militia page. So
good luck with that.
That's not going to happen now. He's got access to firearms. I don't know if they're his. I don't know if they're parents or friends. I don't know any of that yet. But obviously he had a bit of a flair for not necessarily taking the law into his own hands, but clearly helping. He wanted to be a cop of some form or fashion, right? Well, this was not the way to go about it. And the comments before, 18-year-olds are way more mature than 17-year-olds, and a 17-year-old may not be your best police force, but how about an 18-year-old going to Iraq? Seems fine. No, the difference here is a year or 6 months or however old he really truly is from being 18, that's not really the point here. people going over to fight at least get some form of combat training and get some. I would hope this kid has had experience with firearms. Obviously, he's familiar with the weapon enough to defend himself successfully.
I was about to say,
there's a difference between.
Jesus.
There's not a big difference between 17 and 18. No, but there's a difference between a cop and a combat experienced trained personnel. So it's just why is he here? Why was he there?
Yeah.
He wanted to do some vigilante.
Now, correct me where I'm wrong here, Tom, because this is just the pedestrian understanding. So I'm going to give you kind of what's the word on what everybody else, and correct me from what you've heard. From what I've heard, just very 1,000-mile view, is that apparently these militias were called in by some business owners to defend businesses. And so apparently some of these folks were invited there. Mm-hmm. And then the Facebook group said, "Godly Bob Howdy, let's meet in Wisconsin." And I think that's how we got to this point. Is that anywhere close? That's only what I've heard, and I'm certainly willing to hear other explanations.
Yeah, there are different explanations for this. The guys from the Facebook group, the militia, said that they were invited there by the police. So that's what they said. The police refused to comment on it. They said, "We're not answering any comments on the militia whatsoever." The press kept asking them, "But did you invite them here? Did you know these guys? Did you have contact with them?" They kept saying, "We're not answering those questions. We told you 100 times." Now, I do want to say real quick, from what I've seen, that obviously a 17-year-old should not be carrying a weapon, regardless of what your moral, take is on this versus, a 17-year-old and an 18-year-old. Like, forget your moral take on it. Legally, I don't think that a 17-year-old should be walking around with a weapon in his hands. Okay. Then we ask, okay, so legally, what is required of him? What was he supposed to do? Legally, you got people chasing you saying, "Get him. We're going to get him. We're going to beat him up." You're running away from them. For one, don't chase somebody with a gun. Like, y'all, I don't know what those people were thinking.
Exactly.
But two,
yeah,
once you fall over and they start swinging skateboards at your head, they're pulling out guns on you, they're throwing Coke bottles at you, like, you're going to get shot on. Like, what are you thinking? Don't chase somebody with a freaking gun. This guy, if I have a gun and people are chasing me, I'm going to assume you think you can get over on me and I'm going to shoot you. Like, that's that. But if you're walking around with a gun in your hand, I'm also going to assume you're threatening me and I'm going to come after you. This is a whole other, like, Ahmaud Arbery sort of case all over again, where people are trying to take some vigilante justice into their own hands and the person with the gun starts shooting. Like, it is a bad situation all around. The whole thing is horribly sad.
Yeah.
I always, and I'm really getting goddamn tired of having to say this line, but it is a modern day Othello. It is a tragedy no matter how you want to look at it. And Brandon Jamar Brown, they say he wasn't even licensed and the police didn't even think twice to even question it. A lot of questions on that, but again, regardless, the rifle was what saved his life in a few instances. So I'm wondering what this is going to be a fascinating case to watch in the future. Again, I'm a guy that just follows these types of cases, and I'm just curious what kind of precedents this will set.
Real quick, you keep saying the rifle is what saved his life, but there's a good chance that if he doesn't have the rifle in the first place, he's never stuck in this situation. He never gets into this situation.
If he doesn't go there, none of this would have happened.
Sure, but you could say the same thing about protesters that get into some sort of trouble. Not all protesters are having tons of people chasing them, but he did because he had a gun. He could have gone down there and walked around all willy-nilly, no problem. But because
you can go undetected without a weapon. Yeah.
Right. But because he had a gun, that made everything totally different.
Well, not just the fact that he had a gun, because obviously other people there had guns. But we're talking the difference between a concealed carry pistol and an open carry rifle. Obviously, you're a major target at that point. You're putting yourself in that position to be targeted by people who don't want you there. You willingly went there with an open carry and put yourself in that position.
The whole point is a showing of force, so people won't. The idea is to be a deterrent, and apparently some folks were not deterred. Now, we will ultimately find out and keep it right here. We will ultimately get to the bottom. Was it a Coke bottle? Was it a Molotov cocktail? Was it a cherished portrait of your King of Extreme? I doubt it. But we will find out what it ultimately was, folks, and we will let you know right here.
Like Michael said, it seems as though he was trained. It does.
Oh, shit.
It seems as though he was.
The president's out.
The president's out. Let me pop something up here.
Later on, when we're done with the president, I do want to get into holding a weapon in your hand, brandishing a weapon, having one hanging from your arm versus slung over your back or in a holster. Like, I think that these sorts of situations and the legality around them are what create a lot of these problems in the first place. So I definitely like to get into that later.
This is
we'll come back to this, but we're going to jump over. I'm going to try to pop up this on the screen here, folks.
Get some distinguished guests, please.
Can we all hear that?
I stand before you tonight, honored by your support, proud of the extraordinary progress we have made together over the last 4 years, and brimming with confidence in the bright future we will build for America over the next 4 years. We begin this evening. Our thoughts are with the wonderful people who have just come through the wrath of Hurricane Laura. We are working closely with state and local officials in Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, sparing no effort to save lives. While the hurricane was fierce, one of the strongest to make landfall in 150 years, the casualties and damage were far less than thought possible only 24 hours ago.
Uh-oh.
And this is due to the great work of FEMA, law enforcement, and the individual states. I will be going this week.
Let's get us back.
And congratulations. Thank you for that great job out there. We really appreciate it. We are one national family, and we will always protect, love, and care for each other. Here tonight are the people who have made my journey possible and filled my life with so much joy. For her incredible service to our nation and its children, I want to thank our magnificent First Lady. Thank you. Thank you. I also want to thank my amazing daughter, Ivanka, for that introduction, and to all of my children. Ivanka, please stand up. Great job. And to all of my children and grandchildren, I love you more than words can express.
Just Ivanka.
I know my brother Robert is looking down on us right now from heaven. He was a great brother and was very proud of the job we are all doing. Thank you. We love you, Robert.
All right, let me pause that quick. I'm going to jump over to another spot here. Any thoughts yet so far?
Getting his family in, it's just good optics when you're talking about a debate, you talk about your family. It was kind of strange to me that Ivanka, stand up, Don, Eric, Tiffany, it's all right. Like that was We all know it's going to be Ivanka that's running in 2024. Just knock it off. Just knock it off. So, and Tom, I mean, you never thought Donald Trump would be our president. So shit, Ivanka's got a good college try of a chance, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Pence had a pretty good speech as well.
And Mike is joined by his beloved wife, a teacher, and military mom, Karen Pence. Thank you, Karen.
Like Karen.
My fellow
Karens have
Americans,
been
tonight,
pissed.
with a heart full of gratitude and boundless optimism, I profoundly accept this nomination for President of the United States.
Well, color me fucking shocked that he's accepting the nomination. I can't believe it.
Crazy.
USA, USA, USA.
Tom, you're trying to buy time with the president. It's going to be tough. He's got a lot to say too.
He's
The
a jerk.
Republican Party, the party of Abraham Lincoln, goes
Wow.
forward united, determined, and ready to welcome millions of Democrats, independents, and anyone who believes in the greatness of America and the righteous heart of the American people. In a new term as president, we will again build the greatest economy in history, quickly returning to full employment, soaring incomes, and record prosperity.
Okay, let me pause that real quick. He brings up something. Oh, shit. Hang on. I just want to pop that up for Chicken. The tyrant, Abraham Lincoln. Chicken will appreciate that. He just brought up the economy. Now, obviously, this is something that's been contested very, very deeply, I think, by both sides of anybody who's appeared on this show. But the economy has been one of the big bolstering points of why we should vote for Donald Trump in re-election, right? He got the economy back on the upswing in different ways, right? So to bring us out of this crazy time of 2020 where the economy tanked, if you're looking for the economy to recover, wouldn't Donald Trump be the ideal vote for you if that's a big focus on the way you want to vote?
He has proven that he can move the economy when it hasn't been forcefully destimulated. He does understand that the economy is a psychological engine. And, oh, you rapscallion ne'er-do-well. Oh!
I was very attracted. I was very
You
attracted to you for a second there, Phil. But
Oh,
Great.
boy.
I was about to go look up a sex robot.
We'll get there.
Jeez, we'll get there. That's the main event. Don't give away the main. But in terms of economy, he's proven. And like I said, oil was trading at negative $40 back in July or June, and that's what determines the totality of life on this planet. And we've got that back into some semblance of sense again. So.
And to be fair, Phil, you basically went on record as saying we're talking Armageddon with the way crude oil prices went this year. You were ready for us to go back to the Stone Age, and
if that didn't turn itself around, if that didn't turn itself around, not a word of that's hyperbole. And we somehow turned that around. So tremendous management, as far as I'm concerned.
All right, fair enough. If I'm picking who's going to be better for the economy as a whole, I would, if that was my only way to vote, wouldn't you? I would probably go with the one you know versus the one you don't know. And to be fair, we do kind of know where Joe Biden's policies lie with the economy. We did have him as vice president for 8 years. I know it's a completely different thing, but apples and oranges, I suppose. Let's go a little further here.
Hang on, Tom, your take?
Good.
I don't feel that you're being quite fully genuine, Tom.
All right. Very good.
Oh, thank
We
you.
will defend America against all threats and protect America against all dangers. We will lead America into new frontiers of ambition and discovery, and we will reach for new heights of national achievement. We will rekindle new faith in our values, new pride in our history, and a new spirit of unity that can only be realized through love for our great country. Because we understand that America is not a land cloaked in darkness. America is the torch that enlightens the entire world. Gathered here at our beautiful and majestic White House, known all over the world as the People's House, we cannot help but marvel at the miracle that is our great American story. This has been the home of larger-than-life figures like Teddy Roosevelt and Andrew Jackson, who rallied Americans to bold visions of a bigger and brighter future. Within these walls lived tenacious generals like President Grant and Eisenhower, who led our soldiers
Grant was a
in the
drunk.
cause of freedom. From these grounds, Thomas Jefferson sent Lewis and Clark on a daring expedition to cross a wild and uncharted continent. In the depths of a bloody civil war, President Abraham Lincoln looked out these very windows upon a half-completed Washington Monument and asked God in his providence to save our nation. 2 weeks after Pearl Harbor, Franklin Delano Roosevelt welcomed Winston Churchill, and just inside, they set our people on a course to victory in the Second World War. In recent months, our nation and the entire planet has been struck by a new and powerful invisible enemy. Like those brave Americans before us, we are meeting this challenge.
Oh boy.
We are delivering life-saving therapies and will produce a vaccine before the end of the year, or maybe even sooner.
Okay. Yep, got to pause there. Well, so I don't know if anybody knows this, but like it's September in a few days, and that's a fairly small window. I don't know. I don't know if I would have gone on record there and said that. What do you guys think of that?
He is an optimist, isn't he? He's
very optimistic.
He's very optimistic about America. You know, you never know. Maybe he knows something we don't, but that is at least
if he knows something we don't. If he knows something we don't about a vaccine, that should have been the whole fucking speech. No, none of this stroking of the Republican ego.
Hey, everyone.
No. You come out and you say, I have made a cure for Corona. Here it is,
guys.
That's it.
I made a cure for Corona.
Yeah.
Have a fun weekend.
That's all you say.
That would be a pretty good sale, but he knows like, damn it, it's coming out November 6th, isn't it? Damn it! So that's his whole pitch. But
Tom, what do you got?
I was thinking the same thing as chicken. I'm wondering what the enemy is. What was the enemy?
Well, Chicken said that because he just wants me to mention the drinking game, which I don't believe I did at the top of the show, and that includes the word COVID. So go ahead and drink, everybody.
Damn it!
Yeah,
I gotta go get something to drink.
While he's getting it, I'll introduce what I'm drinking this evening. Some award-winning Colonel E.H. Taylor's small batch bourbon. Really good stuff. I got it for just regular retail. Didn't have to get it off the secondary market. Apparently those are popular there too. I had no idea. And you can also check out on the KOE Nation page, I did a toast to President LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, because it's his birthday today. So since we're talking to the president, figured I'd shoehorn that one in. So
I'll drop a link in the comments for anybody who wants to check that out.
Thank you, good
I think
sir.
that's what you poured me a dram of, isn't it, Phil? The E.H.
Yep.
Taylor?
Yep,
All
Colonel
right.
E.H. Taylor. And Tom is working on that bottle of Crown. All right. A good moderate drinker, sir.
There, so yeah.
Yeah, good moderate drinker, sir.
I don't
All right.
know. I was chuking all over the place last time. But
All right. So before we move along, any thoughts on his declaration of having a cure for the unseen enemy before the end of the year?
We shall see.
it's called hydrochloroquine. It's proven to work 100% of the time. All the
Allegedly. Jesus, Tommy, you're trying to get all of us just erased from the internet forever? Fuck. Okay. My God. You're on a real roll.
Sorry. 60% of the time.
Allegedly.
Hurts every time.
Allegedly.
Oh,
but yeah, that we will we'll just leave that. We'll leave it at that.
That's the perfect segue.
Let's continue.
We will defeat the virus, end the pandemic,
Demonetized.
and emerge stronger than ever before. What united generations past was an unshakable confidence in America's destiny and an unbreakable faith in the American people. They knew that our country is blessed by God and has a special purpose in this world. It is that conviction that inspired the formation of our union, our westward expansion, the abolition of slavery, the passage of civil rights, the space program, and the overthrow of fascism, tyranny, and communism. This towering American spirit has prevailed over every challenge and lifted us to the summit of human endeavor. And yet, despite all of our greatness as a nation, everything we have achieved is now in danger. This is the most important election in the history of our country.
Aren't they all? Like, every 4 years is the most important election, isn't it? Like, I don't. That's a buzz statement.
Thank you. At no time before have voters faced a clearer choice between two parties, two visions, two philosophies, or two agendas. This election will decide whether we save the American dream or whether we allow a socialist agenda to demolish our cherished destiny. It will decide whether we rapidly create millions of high-paying jobs.
The hair's flapping.
Or whether we crush our industries and
That
send
toupee
millions
is
of
coming
these
off.
jobs overseas, as has foolishly been done for many decades. Your vote will decide whether we protect law-abiding Americans or whether we give free rein to violent anarchists and agitators and criminals who threaten our citizens. And this election will decide whether we will defend the American way of life or whether we will allow a radical movement to completely dismantle and destroy it. That won't happen. At the Democrat National Convention.
It's already happening, though. Like, I'm sorry. Like, he can't say it's not going to happen. There's already a lot of violence happening, especially this year alone. So it's not like we're preventing it.
No.
We're going to make it try to go away.
Nope.
It's not going to happen.
He went to a church and held up a Bible.
Yeah, I didn't really care for that PR stuff.
It's all over.
Myself.
No. It's all over. He fixed it.
I don't know that he was necessarily trying. Honestly, I felt like that was an even bigger troll move on his part than his Twitter account. Like, I think that caused more people to lose their fucking minds than half the shit he writes on Twitter. So I think
you
that
mean
was,
like not talking about any of the shootings, any of the protests, or anything, and then just showing up to shoot a bunch of protesters with rubber bullets and then stand there and hold a Bible for about 20 pictures.
Yeah, I didn't care for that one myself. But he mentioned something there. Are we going to let the radicals take over? It will not happen. Well, he did fail to mention one thing there. He said citizens, and then he talked about the radicals. Well, the radicals are citizens. So it's a matter of finding a way to stop the violence, but remembering that these are still Americans. Like, you can't just ignore that fact completely. I understand he glossed over it a little bit, but these are still citizens, and the way to stop this is to prevent people from wanting to rise into the street. And then once that happens, how do you prevent other people from wanting to rise against the people who are rising up in the streets? And that's
Chicken brings up a good point. Pelosi actually stopped this as well. She took a knee for 9 minutes. So I'm pretty sure that fixed everything as well.
Yeah, did she actually mean to do it, or was she just like, I got to get this crick out of my knee? Hang on, guys. Oh, good time for photo.
Her and all 20 other Democrats.
Jerry Nadler wasn't getting down. I was like, are you kidding? My knees aren't going to sustain this, okay? No way. All right, like, look at me. I'm old. I'm in Washington. I'm pampered. My knees will be chalk by the time I'm done with 9 minutes on them. So, yeah, Nadler didn't do it, but yeah, the symbolic photo PR. You know, Tony, you mentioned that Grant was a drunk during the war. Yes, not during his presidency. Actually, I've been doing a lot of research on presidential drinking, and. You'd be shocked. Not as much as you think. And Trump, total teetotaler. But
it's easier to label a general during a war a drunk than it is okay, well, now he's president, so we're just going to kind of pretend he fixed that.
But yeah, he actually drank bourbon mostly. But strangely enough, damn. Well, let's hit up the speech a little bit more.
Yeah, let's.
I forgot my train of thought there. I'll be honest with you, folks.
You'll get back there.
Joe Biden and his party repeatedly assailed America as a land of racial, economic, and social injustice. So tonight I ask you a simple question. How can the Democrat Party ask to lead our country when it spends so much time tearing down our country?
Goodbye, Anna. Thank you for stopping by, miss.
In the left's backward view, they do not see America as the most free, just, and exceptional nation on earth. Instead, they see a wicked nation that must be punished for its sins. Our opponents say that redemption for you can only come from giving power to them. This is a defensive movement throughout history. But in this country, we don't look to career politicians for salvation. In America, we don't turn to government to restore our souls. We put our faith in Almighty God.
Okay, so let's touch on that. I'll be honest, like he could not have just said what he said more perfect to appeal to people he wants to appeal to than how he just said it. That was brilliantly worded on his part. Obviously,
persuasion.
No, he's hands down one of the most persuasive on the screen that I can ever remember seeing. And That I guarantee that was just one of those lines that appealed to a lot of people. Basically, what he was saying there is the Democrats are crying for control because they're saying only they can fix it, and we're saying nay because we believe in God. I think that was a little cliche, but man, he said it. He said it the way he needed to say it. Tom, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Most of the time, anytime he talks about Democrats or the left, like as much as I don't like Democrats and the left, I disagree with almost every characterization or everything he says about them. Like, if you said, like, well, who's saying that, or who's saying they want to do that, or who's going to do that, like, there's normally not really an answer there.
I think that kind of relates to the whole vote or die mentality we were kind of going over. What was it last week when we were talking about what was the buzz phrase they were talking about? Even like Billie Eilish was saying it. They said vote
like your life depends on it.
Yeah, vote like your life depends on it. I think it kind of touches on that, maybe indirectly. Maybe it's not a direct response to that, but indirectly it's kind of retorting to that ideal. So I don't like, I'll be honest, I don't like the approach either party's really taking into this election. It's just, I'd say this one's unique. This year is unique, and it is given this year alone, and given that we are voting for or against an incumbent president who was a reality TV star. So yes, this one's very different, but it's going to be different every 4 years, because now that we've gotten to this point, now that we are electing Donald Trump's as president, good or bad, the door's open in such a way that we're realistically talking about like The Rock having a run at the presidency. Obviously, we're still going to have our first female president. Will she actually be a politician, or will she be a celebrity like he mostly was, other than being a businessman? So, yeah, all the elections from here on out are going to be vastly different for many different reasons. But the tactics used by both sides this time around, I want to say it feels like it's more attack versus attack versus attack and response, but it is like that every 4 years. But this one is definitely unique given the way this year has panned out.
Well,
any thoughts?
If you look at the Supreme Court nominations that are coming up, this one is unique because this will shape the direction of the Supreme Court for the next 20 years. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is more than likely going to retire in the next 4 years, and Clarence Thomas has been looking for a way out for 6 years now. So he's been wanting to retire as well. So that's why you're going to see a lot of unified Republican energy on this.
He did mention the career politicians, and I'll be honest, like if you want to talk platform for getting my vote, that's one thing I think speaks to a lot of people. Maybe not so much across the country, but definitely in places like where we live, Phil. I can't speak for Tom, but the career politicians are definitely one of those hot button issues in this area of the country, because like Joe Biden's been in politics how many years? Nancy Pelosi has been in politics how many years? Now, and the proper thing to say around here is now they're going to fix it. So now you have to vote for them. They're career politicians, and they are just now going to get around to fixing it. I understand getting to a certain position to be able to do something is another topic altogether, but it's an interesting way to look at it. The career politicians do piss a lot of people off because they are making a lot of money for doing not very much a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's continue with the president's speech.
All right. We move on. Guys, you don't have to applaud for me. No, stop it. Stop it.
Finish on a good note. Walk off. Drop the mic.
Yeah, just mic drop. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Literally, I've cured Corona. Mic drop. Walk at that. This thing
Joe
should have
Biden
been
is not
30
a savior
seconds.
of America's soul. He is the destroyer of America's jobs. And if given the chance, he will be the destroyer of American greatness. For 47 years, Joe Biden took the donations of blue-collar workers, gave them hugs and even kisses.
What?
He did.
What?
Cheap shot.
What the fuck?
It's election season.
And told them he felt their
Oh.
pain. And then he flew back to Washington and voted to ship our jobs to China and many other distant lands. Joe Biden spent his entire career outsourcing their dreams and the dreams of American workers, offshoring their jobs, opening their borders, and sending their sons and daughters to fight in endless foreign wars that never ended. 4 years ago, I ran for president because I could not watch this betrayal of our country any longer. I could not sit by as career politicians let other countries take advantage of us on trade, borders, foreign policy, and national defense. Our NATO partners, as an example, were very far behind in their defense payments. But at my strong urging, they agreed to pay $130 billion more a year, the first time in over 20 years that they upped their payments. And this $130 billion will ultimately go to $400 billion a year. And Secretary General Stoltenberg, who heads NATO, was amazed after watching for so many years and said that President Trump did what no one else was able to do. Thank you.
Tom, you have
From
some
the moment
comments? I feel like Tom has something to say.
I think he might.
That was good.
No comment? I think. Come on, you have something boiling there.
I just like, as soon as he said, like, this guy, I knew it was leading to, and then they call me and they tell me, Trump, you did the greatest job. Nobody has ever done a job as great as your job. It's always the greatest. It's always been the greatest. Thank you so much. And then when everybody cheers, it was just the cherry on top for him to just be like, yes, thank you. Like, it was just.
It is very much a marionette show, and he is a puppet master. It doesn't matter how you want to look at it.
Well, here's the thing.
He's a master at this.
It's all like, even Tom's objections. Notice that it's so visual that you can almost like see the movie of what he's talking about play out in your head. And that's what I mean. Like, this entire RNC, the theme has been visual themes because they had to remove the crowd, so they replace it with visual language. And it's been 10 out of 10 in terms of just raw persuasion. Even like that Charlie Kirk speech that you didn't like, when he talked about Trump as the bodyguard of America. Amazingly persuasive, and it's easily repeatable. So that's that's
It's like
go ahead.
It's like when you have to use like pop-up books and picture books instead of books with like lots of words in them instead. That's Trump talking compared to everybody else.
Tom, you got to understand, though, not every American is as intellectually fluent as the three of us. He is, he is trying to communicate to everybody because he is the president of everybody. So I understand nobody can be quite as smart as the King of Extreme. Nobody can be quite as smart as the cast of the Dog and Chicken Show or the Tom Foolery.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
But so again, if you were to read Trump's speech just as a speech, it looks very disjointed. It doesn't read very well. But as audio communication, it's 5 stars. So
you need the full presentation to really get sucked into the product that he's selling. Like you said, like if you're reading this down a line, if you take like a Trump speech and you print it out and you don't tell anybody who wrote it, who said it, what the context is, and then you put it like next to say like a Barack Obama speech, I think it's going to be read in your head much, much differently because Barack Obama was very good at fluently speaking and saying things that just kind of melted you a bit. Like he wanted to connect with you on a personal level, whereas Donald Trump is saying specific bullet points to really drive home why you should buy what he's selling. So it's a very different type of speech, and I think it would read incredibly differently in black and white text. I think that's a very good point. Any other thoughts before we keep going?
Yeah, after this, I've got something for you to play. I'm going to send you a link, so just have
All
that
right.
on cue for
Will
when
do.
this is over.
I left my former life behind, and it was a good life.
Oh, shit. Oh, God.
I have done nothing but fight for you. I did what our political establishment never expected and could never forgive, breaking the cardinal rule of Washington politics. I kept my promise.
Which promise?
Tax cut.
The
Judge.
wall? Because I don't think the wall was a fulfilled promise.
Together, we have
We'll
ended
get
the rule
there.
of the failed political class,
Not if you don't
and they are
win.
desperate to get their power back by any means necessary. You've seen that.
All politicians are.
They
though.
are
Come
angry
on.
at me because instead of putting them first, I very simply said, America first.
Anybody want to chime in there, or we good?
Thank you.
Tremendous.
Days after taking
tremendous.
office, we shocked the Washington establishment and withdrew from the last administration's job-killing Trans-Pacific Partnership. I then
Yeah,
immediately
yeah.
approved the Keystone XL and Dakota Access pipelines, ended the unfair and very costly Paris Climate Accord, and secured for the first time American energy independence.
We are a net exporter.
We passed record-setting tax and regulation cuts at a rate nobody had ever seen before. Within 3 short years, we built the strongest economy in the history of the world. Washington insiders asked me not to stand up to China. They pleaded with me to let China continue stealing our jobs, ripping us off, and robbing our country blind. But I kept my word to the American people. We took the toughest, boldest, strongest, and hardest hitting action against China in American history by far.
Whether you agree with it or not.
They said that it would be impossible to terminate and replace NAFTA. But again, they were wrong. Earlier this year, I ended the NAFTA nightmare and signed the brand new U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement into law. And right now, auto companies and others are building their plants and factories in America, not firing their employees and not deserting us for other countries. In perhaps no area did the Washington special interests try harder to stop us than on my policy of pro-American immigration. But I refuse to back down, and today America's borders are more secure than ever before.
Anything we need to jump on there? Anybody?
I mean, the borders are more or less closed because of COVID. That really slowed a lot. So,
that's kind of what I was thinking.
It is one of those. Hey, look, borders are more secure. What do you want? Now, one of my criticisms is when this started breaking out, we probably should have closed the borders even sooner, but there was too much criticism to be had for that at the time. So, yeah, there was judges that were going to try and block it if we did it too soon, and so that was
honest question from Brandon. Does anyone think he's doing this for the greater good, or does he have a hidden agenda? I guess
he's a politician.
Okay, there you go. The only thing you can really say is all politicians have a hidden agenda. The only thing I can say about Donald Trump is he's not a career politician. He was a businessman before this. He had himself in his interest, first and foremost, of course, but that's been probably one of the bigger reasons he's been so economy-driven in his policies. But, I think over the last run of a handful of presidents, maybe it's fair to say that Donald Trump has had the people more in mind than some of the others, depending on which policy or which stance you're looking at. Sure, it's debatable, but I think from a sheer platform perspective, Donald Trump's been a lot more direct about, I'm doing this for the people and we'll get there one way. And I'm sure he's going to come out better for it in the end, one way or another. They all do. But I think that's been his biggest platform, and that's probably one of the biggest reasons he won in the first place. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I don't think any speeches like this are ever for the greater good. So I have trouble just with the framing of your question in the first place, Brandon. These speeches are never for the greater good. The GOP, what is it? The Republican
RNC.
Yes, the RNC is not
Phil
happening for the greater good. The DNC is not happening for the greater good. Like none of this stuff. There's no greater good that could come from it except for their fame, their names, their egos, their votes. Like all of those things are the only thing that could come from it. And that is the only reason we do it, is just as a show of unity for each side.
Well, now I'm going to go ahead and
agree with that, because
I'm sure the last
if it was about the people, they'd work together. There wouldn't be a divide in politics.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say I think at least the last 3 presidents have all had noble motives, and they've all thought that what they're going for is the greater good. But you do have to examine the fruits of those labors and what is the actual outcome. Like, I stayed very impartial for the George W. Bush birthday toast, but when you examine the fruits, like the end of the Iraq War, the beginnings of the economic crisis, he probably did have some good intentions, but the fruits of those labors were not as good as his intentions. And Barack Obama, we could go into that, and Donald Trump, I am quite sure he has very noble intentions and things that he believes are working to the greater good. We will have to examine the fruits of that probably in the next 4.5 years. Hey!
Yeah, and go check out Phil's videos. They are very good. He's got I enjoy those very much, and he does stay very impartial. He did one on Bill Clinton as well. That was very good.
Yeah.
But go check these out.
I was pretty shocked at how impartial Phil was on the Bill Clinton one on his birthday. I mean, Phil, kudos.
I figure it's their birthday, for God's sakes. If there's any day to try and take the temperature down on folks a little bit, let's do it on their birthday, especially with these modern presidents. You're always there's somebody that's going to want to kick a shitstorm. But I just no, this is what they like to drink. This is what they did in their downtime. This is how you can connect with them. Yeah, they do. But so anyhow, let's move onward and upward with the speech of Trump.
A YouTube chat is way behind.
Yeah, it sucks.
Shit, I missed a bunch of private chat comments.
We ended catch and release, stopped asylum fraud, took down human traffickers who prey on women and children, and we have deported 20,000 gang members and 500,000 criminal aliens.
That looks pretty good on paper.
We have already built 300 miles of border wall, and we are adding 10 new miles every single week. The wall will soon be complete, and it is working beyond our wildest expectations. We are joined this evening by members of the Border Patrol Union, representing our country's courageous border agents. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. Brave, brave people.
So, real quick.
Okay. Go ahead.
Bringing up the border is always a troll move. For Republicans, they want to troll. They can always bring up the border and guns if they want to troll. They can always bring up either the border or guns. Those are the two troll moves.
I think you're right about guns for sure.
For
Definitely.
Democrats,
What do you mean by that?
What do you mean?
No, I just don't know what you mean by that.
Like, it's saying, like, hey, we know you guys don't like this stuff, so we're going to throw it in your face as much as possible. So for Democrats, they'll bring up, like, Planned Parenthood sort of stuff, or, like, how many women they have in their cabinet or something like that, or, like, there's some sort of social justice thing. Like, it's the two troll moves that one uses against the other as this, like, you know, we got you, like, you know, so, like, just the fact
the gotcha topics that the go-to topics. And I think you're right about guns, because especially right now with all the protests and vigilantism going around, it's going to be one of those hot button issues. So yeah, I agree to that extent. I think the border security thing, though, not necessarily.
Did he mention the amendment that I didn't hear? Like, did I not hear it?
Did he mention what?
Did he mention the Second Amendment for a second and I didn't hear it? Or?
No.
No,
He mentioned the border, and I was saying, like, because I was just bringing up the fact that throwing in the border as much as possible is a troll move. I'm just saying the other troll move that Republicans use is mentioning guns as much as possible. Whereas Democrats do the same thing, just with other topics.
Yes. I think the border topic, though, isn't as much not just a troll move. I think part of it is because it was such a big platform during his trying to gain the presidency. He basically platformed on, I'm going to build a wall. I'm going to get border security under control. That was his biggest point. He's building a wall. So if he doesn't bring it up now, if he ignores it completely, that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt his chances at reelection. And he's putting a very small window. He just said the wall will be done very soon. Well, what the fuck does that mean? I mean, he even said before the end of the year, we're going to have a vaccine for Corona. Now he's saying the wall is going to be completed. Of course, he's saying that now because we're getting very, very close to November. So I don't think it's necessarily a buzzword go-to thing. I think that's just been his platform. He has to go for that. So I see what you're saying. I do agree to an extent, but they all have those hot button issues that they have to fucking use, especially down the stretch that we're getting to now. But he has kind of stayed away from guns.
That's probably why Trump made coronavirus, is so that he could shut down the border.
You know, I'm sure. Well,
wow.
Tom, gotta give you credit. That's a new one. We're starting new conspiracy theory tonight.
Shit.
So yeah.
Wow.
Tom,
what happened?
Man.
Is there tinfoil underneath that cap? Is that
Damn, that was I didn't see that one coming, Tom.
But no, Tom, I will say the idea of the Second Amendment being a troll, we will have to discuss that more in the future, because that's a little, I don't know, perhaps a bit of an alien idea to me, but we will discuss that further in the future. So let's continue on with...
Holy shit.
What did I miss?
I'm just trying to recover from the Trump made Corona comment. Holy shit. It's come full circle. Now the Dems made it. Now the Republicans made it. Oh, we're just coming full circle. Wow.
We're blaming everyone but the people who actually made it. Oh, wait.
You see, this country loves our law enforcement. They do.
Yeah.
They really do. Love and respect. When I learned that the Tennessee Valley Authority laid off hundreds of American workers and forced them to train their lower paid foreign replacement, I promptly removed the chairman of the board. And now those talented American workers have been rehired and are back providing power to Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi, North Carolina,
Congratulations, Tom.
and Virginia.
Yay. Represent.
You got power.
What the fuck are you wearing?
They have their old jobs back, and some are here with us this evening. Please stand.
He
You
ain't
went
got
through a
the
lot.
tinfoil
Please
handy.
stand. Thank you. Thank you very much.
My power went out.
You've been through a lot. Thank you very much.
Oh, God.
Last month, I took on Big Pharma. You think that's easy? It's not. And signed orders that will massively lower the cost of your prescription drugs and give critically ill patients access to life-saving cures. We passed the decades-long-awaited right to try. Right to try.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay, so yeah, that's a big one for me. Is Big Pharma is such a fucking nasty, evil, money-hungry entity. At least in my opinion. If anybody disagrees for me, I'd love to hear why. But yeah, if we could actually get the costs of cheap as fuck to make life-saving drugs down to I don't know, affordable rates. Yeah, I can't really disagree with any of those ideas. I know there's a big conspiracy theory about Trump's involved in some anti-big pharma corporation where if we cut their costs, then somehow he's going to make trillions and trillions of dollars. But I don't really give a flying fuck if he makes trillions and trillions of dollars if it means, people who need insulin can actually afford to buy it. I don't see a downside here.
Yeah, so my main opinion is if pharmacy companies make a new drug and they're the first to get it out there and stuff like that, why shouldn't they profit off of it? Why shouldn't they charge as much as they want? It's just like any other business. It's just like any other item. It's just like anything else. They should be able to make money. It's not free for them to, put all of this,
but we're talking margin of profit.
Sure, but who's to judge what a good margin of profit is for somebody
people
else's
that would
product?
live instead of dying because they
right,
can now
but that's
afford
not their
product.
responsibility. They're the ones who put the money and the time into it, and they're the ones who created the
Sure.
product, and now it's their responsibility to keep you alive. No, but
No,
with
that's your
that said-
insurance companies, right?
Yeah, sure.
To keep you alive, to approve those treatments, approve those payments. And if the big pharma corporation that says, okay, you need this drug to live, I get that, but we're charging 600% more than it costs to make, and your insurance is only good for these 3 places instead of the 20 that carry it. Yeah, you just kind of got to fucking die.
So like I said, that's my main opinion on it. But like Chicken said, that this is morality versus capitalism. The problem here is that the schools actually are the ones who, the universities are the ones who actually come up with most of these pharmaceutical inventions. They're the ones who come up with most of it. Even most of our technological inventions that the Google
UNL Med Center here in Lincoln
Apple use. Yes,
is very high regarded.
All of the universities do this stuff. And then
absolutely.
And the government subsidizes all of these universities and funds them massively.
They sure do.
Okay. So with that said, our tax dollars are paying for this stuff to be researched and then created and invented. And
Yep.
then it's being sold off to pharmaceutical companies who then charge us out the butt for it. That's where the problem is. It's not how much they're charging. It's not the fact that they choose to make money off their own product or the fact that they're capitalists. The problem is that we paid for this drug already. We paid for it to be invented. Now we're paying thousands of dollars again just to use it from a third-party company.
Not only did we already pay for it, but you're talking about universities helping develop that. So it kind of dips into student athletes, like profiting off of somebody who's working for free
That
to
almost sounds
research
like,
and help develop things.
like the system of mercantilism back in England, I believe it was in the 1700s, where you basically had private gains and public losses. So it's kind of the worst of both worlds. And so what you're kind of describing is it's almost not even like what you would call a true capitalism, but look up the system of mercantilism to any of the folks in the audience, and it'll seem a lot closer to the crapitalism that I like to call it, where you have a little bit too much of government, corporate in each other's pockets, a little bit too readily available bedfellows. That's where you kind of
I think the big problem that a lot of people have is if you connect the dots and you look at a lot of these career politicians, you'll see that they're involved with or married to someone who is involved with someone very, very high up in big pharma, deciding ultimately what a lot of these drugs cost. Obviously, everybody who's in a position and gets to a position where they can make millions and millions and millions of dollars, you can't really fault those people who built and clawed and scratched their way up to get to a position of where they did.
Mm-hmm.
But if their business is something as important as saving thousands upon thousands of lives based solely off of profit, when you are looking at countless jobs that are just there for the sole reason of profit, much like many of the career politicians, it's kind of hard not to scoff at that and go, there's so many people who are making money off of this who do absolutely nothing, and people die because they can't afford it because this guy has to own 3 golf courses and a couple of yachts.
Yeah, but
how the fuck is that fair?
We can pass the blame around. We can say it's the university's fault for selling these things off to corporations. We can say it's the government's fault for allowing them to sell it off to corporations. We can say it's the government's fault for choosing how money works and capitalism works and then forcing us to pay for necessities that could be life-saving. Like you could literally go in circles on this conversation for days on who gets the blame. And so it's truly never ending. You can't just say, oh, well, the guys who own,
and watch the circles go round and round right here on the Dog and Chicken Show.
Right. So the problem is more like, if we want to criticize something like that, our issue is with capitalism, not with the company, not with the profiteers, not with the CEOs with the yachts and everything. Our problem is with capitalism. That's it.
That's true to an extent, but
capitalism,
regardless of what aisle you sit on, or what party you're affiliated with, or who you're registered for, capitalism is incredibly much a friend of both sides because they're all involved. They all have their hands in big pharma. They all do. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to change as long as we have countless jobs that don't need to be there because their sole reason is to profit. That's my big thing. I can't fault people for making money. That's how this country was founded. That was kind of the principle of freedom. You are allowed to be as successful as you want to be, as much as you're driven to be. And it's a win at all cost mentality. And if you have to step on some people to get there, well, it's better them than you. And that's always been.
And that lends to politicians as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And they're the biggest example of this. And that's why you're seeing Oh, sorry,
Okay.
Phil. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, allow me, gentlemen, before we get back to President Trump's speech, in regards to capitalism, allow me to paraphrase a quote from one Winston Churchill. Yes, capitalism is the worst system in all the world, except all the other ones. That's kind of what it's, yeah, you can say it's terrible, but still better than all the other ones, unfortunately. And
Yeah.
like I would always say, Milton Friedman would always say, Nirvana is not for this world. And that's why I'm glad that Trump's doing what he can to at least bring the prices down, because we're not going to find this perfect equilibrium.
No,
But
there's no such thing.
We can at least, capitalism is as close as we're going to get. So again, there's flaws in every system. Nirvana's not for this world, but like I said, it's the worst you could ever imagine, except all the other ones.
It's
I
the
think
same.
I think it works both ways, but I thought and I could be wrong
He's
here.
talking about democracy.
I thought he said democracy.
That's why I said paraphrase.
Okay.
Right.
Allow me to paraphrase the great Winston Churchill. Let me articulate his words around a little bit, because I'm the king of extreme, and I'm so cool I can just fuck around with Winston Churchill quotes. Why not?
No, I've done that same exact thing. I've used that phrase to compare to capitalism before as well. So yes,
I think that's kind of where everybody's at. Like, everybody understands that. As a society, we're at a point where expecting a drastic change to anything just isn't realistic, at least if you're really paying attention to it, I guess. People like pining for a third party or no party system. It's not going to happen because it's so intertwined in how we live our lives now. You can't just make that big of a radical change and expect it to work. It's such all the inner workings are just cemented in place. It would take a complete anarchist meltdown and a building from the bricks up to change something like that. So a happy medium is the best we can hope for. So coming back to what he said, attacking Big Pharma and trying to make things affordable, that's going to win a lot of votes. And I can't really disagree with it because, we all know people who've had health issues, and maybe a lot of them haven't been able to afford things that would help their day-to-day lives be more manageable or even stay alive. So that is appealing to a lot of people. I don't think it's necessarily just a buzz topic to touch on. I think that's something all people in position that Donald Trump and Joe Biden are in should strive for, is making things affordable for the American people who you are supposed to be in charge of, lead. I think that's just
Tony,
something that absolutely has to be touched on.
We have other topics to get to. We can't all just sit here listening to you talk all night.
Well, you're right. I do tend to go on that filibuster. That's what I'm known for here. And
I was about to call it a Tony Buster, but
all right, onward and upward.
All right, let's do this.
We also passed VA accountability and VA choice. Our great veterans, we're taking care of our veterans. 91% approval rating this month, the VA, given by our veterans. First time anything like that's ever happened. By the end of my first term, we will have approved more than 300 federal judges, including 2 great new Supreme Court justices.
One of the huge things Republicans are voting for this year, the courts.
And to bring prosperity to our forgotten inner cities, we worked hard to pass historic criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones, and long-term funding of historically Black colleges and universities. And before the China virus came in, produced the best unemployment numbers for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Asian Americans ever recorded.
Wow. Look at those camera cuts. Those were perfectly timed. Wow.
And I say very modestly that I have done more for the African American community than any president since Abraham Lincoln, our
Very
first
modestly.
Republican president.
That was bold.
Donald Modesty Trump. I mean, come on now.
Wow.
You're welcome,
He-
black people.
He is
Wow.
the very modest.
I will say, the comparison between him and Abraham Lincoln is pretty. It's fair because Abraham Lincoln was a professional wrestler, and Donald Trump's in the WWE Hall of Fame. So, I mean, take them that what you will.
Yeah, and yeah, he is the king of.
And I've done more in 3 years for the black community than Joe Biden has done in 47 years.
Jesus. That long, huh?
And when I'm reelected, the best is yet to come.
Oh, wow. God damn it, Tom. Jesus Christ.
Thank you very much.
No.
Wow.
When I took office, the Middle East was in total chaos. ISIS was rampaging, Iran was on the rise, and the war in Afghanistan had no end in sight. I withdrew from the terrible one-sided Iran nuclear deal. Unlike many presidents before me, I kept my promise, recognized Israel's true capital, and moved our embassy to Jerusalem.
ISIS ain't around no
But
more.
not
Gotta
only
give
did
them
we
that.
talk about it as a future site, we got it built. Rather than spending $1 billion on a new building as planned, we took an already owned existing building in a better location. Real estate deal, right? And
Got
opened
it done ahead of time and
at a
under
cost
budget.
of less than $500,000.
Got it done ahead of time and under
Many
budget.
things like that government is doing right now. We also recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. And this month we achieved the first Middle East peace deal in 25 years. Thank you to UAE. Thank you to Israel.
Gotta give them that.
In addition, we obliterated 100% of the ISIS caliphate and killed its founder and leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi.
I heard if Trump's toupee falls off, it respawns.
Every strand of that is his absolute
Then in
real
a
hair.
separate operation, we eliminated the world's #1 terrorist by far, Qasem Soleimani. Unlike previous administrations, I have kept America out of new wars, and our troops are coming home.
Okay, hang on,
We have
hang
spent
on.
nearly two.
Okay, so I think that's a kind of a
Fucking Lord.
important topic. Let's touch on it quickly. I think over the last 4 years, Donald Trump has had a lot of opportunity to enter into war, and we have shown a bit of restraint as a country from entering some of those. Tom does have his hand raised. Go ahead.
Hasn't he been saying he's bringing the troops home for a long time? And yes,
Every
maybe he's had
president
lots of
says that.
opportunities to start wars. I believe he's taken some of those opportunities to start wars, and it was the other sides that didn't retaliate as badly. But he also has had lots of opportunities to pull troops out and has chosen not to.
Chicken touched on this. This was during the. This was weeks ago or months ago. But when, which strike was it, Phil? Maybe you can
General
remind me. I believe it was, and there was a lot of opportunity to retaliate before Americans were killed, but it wasn't really until actual Americans died that you saw a big retaliation happen. And then, we didn't like fall into that trap of a big full-scale war, which you can thank Trump for that, or you can thank the other side for not retaliating. But it's not like there was a big opponent, like an Afghanistan Taliban terrorism war to fall into. Like, the last Republican president obviously had a big evil to fall into. Obviously, Trump's would have been, Kim Jong-un, but that didn't happen.
But those weren't with countries like this. These were with actual countries with militaries. Sure. He was fighting like random people living in caves and caliphates and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's a completely different animal every time we talk about war with a foreign nation, because not all nations are the same, not even close. But I feel like we were very, very close to the brink of war with, North Korea. So the fact that did not happen in his first 4 years, you can't look at that as anything but a plus, because we didn't want that. Nobody fucking wanted that, because that's not a war you're going to look at and go, this was justified, no matter how crazy this guy is or our president is. Nobody wanted that war.
That was de-escalated purely through persuasion. So that was another one of those reasons why I always try to emphasize such a thing. With Soleimani, realize what happened there, folks. Realize the power of what it means when you can get someone to act exactly the way you want them to act. President Trump took out General Soleimani of the Iranian government, and the Iranian government sent angry letters, and that's it. That's the level of power and influence that he's able to exude across the Middle East. We actually have a treaty for the first time in 25 years. These are some things to consider. We've actually got rid of ISIS when Obama was playing the whole, we can't find ISIS for 5 years out in the empty desert. Whatever will we do? So, in terms of the Middle East, can't help but give the president a passing grade. It's been...
I do remember, like, the first 2 years of his presidency, all I heard the hard left-leaning people say was he's going to drive us into war within, the next 6 months or 12 months. It's going to happen. We're going to have a full-scale war, and it didn't happen. And I'm glad for that, because we don't need it. Nobody needs it. It's just, it doesn't need to happen. And I don't want to say what he did worked foolproof perfectly, but we're not inflamed in a full-scale war, and you can't ignore that completely. I mean, even if you don't agree with how he went about it. We do have a lot of comments. They lobbed a bunch of bombs into one of our bases. It was retaliation. The Tom Foolery podcast says they cleared the bases. We killed people. They didn't.
Good point.
Brandon says it was lame retaliation, but it was retaliation.
Excellent point.
Yeah. It could have been a lot fucking worse. That's my point. Like, we could have been full scale. And regardless of how advanced some of these countries and foreign nations were, that's not the point. More people could have definitely died, or we could have shipped troops off and started a huge war, and we didn't.
Now, Brendan,
I think Soleimani was a good kill too. Like, don't get me wrong. He was a huge name, had a major reputation, not just for being a great leader, but also for killing Americans. Like, everybody in the Middle East knew who Soleimani was. They revered him. He was well respected. Everybody knew this guy's name. It's hard to get an American to name a single general over here, but over there they all knew Soleimani. They all knew this guy, so it was a great target. It proved a point. It made a big splash, and we didn't have a lot to deal with in the aftermath. Like, all they did was cleared out one of our bases, told everybody to leave, and then they bombed our bases. Fine, like, that worked. It was great. It's sad that planes got shot out of the air, and those people died in the meantime, but not really on America's hands. But to say that we've had so many opportunities to start wars and haven't done it, that was more the other side saying, hey, we have to do some sort of retaliation. We're going to tell our people that we killed a bunch of Americans and we're going to bomb your bases. We just want you to clear out the bases because we don't want a war. So they were kind of the ones to de-escalate that with a strategic move instead of something violent. But to say that they're pulling people out, that's my problem. Is we've been pulling people out supposedly. Even when we were fighting the Kurds, we were supposedly pulled all of those guys out, and then we didn't. We sent them right over to a bunch of oil wells to secure those instead.
Now, before we move on here,
I think we've gotten involved in wars for a lot worse and less reasonable reasons. So, yeah, no, a lot of good points here.
Hang on. I did want to say to Brennan Roy's comment here, it was lame retaliation, but it was retaliation. This is another example of high-level persuasion even being utilized in foreign policy, because Trump has killed a top-level general. He knows he can't just leave the Iranians with nothing at all to go back to their own people. So, like, all right, we'll clear out this base. You can bomb this building into rubble. Then you can go back to your folks and say, look at what we've done. We bombed this building into rubble. And you know what? The next day, we came back and we bombed those piles of rubble into slightly smaller piles of rubble, God damn it. And it gives them something that they can come back to their folks to. And so that is
political chess at the highest form.
High-level persuasion in foreign policy. So, well played, Mr. President.
Yeah. It could have been a lot worse. That's my thing.
But let's continue.
$2.5 trillion on completely rebuilding our military, which was very badly depleted when I took office, as you know. This includes 3 separate pay raises for our great warriors.
That's another topic altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even want to touch that.
We also launched the Space Force, the first
Here we go.
branch of the United States military since the Air Force was created almost 75 years ago. We have spent the last 4 years reversing the damage Joe Biden inflicted over the last 47 years.
Oh, my God.
Biden's record is a shameful roll call of the most catastrophic betrayals and blunders in our lifetime.
Here's something to keep in mind, folks. All of you within the sound of my voice. Trump he did something brilliant. You always want to be the first person to do something that someone will eventually do. And so he created Space Force, which is a new branch in our military, and something to keep in mind, folks. 10,000 years from now, if our progeny actually makes it to the stars, they will all be educated on the name Donald Trump. This is the Space Force. We started exploring space because of this branch that was founded by some human named Donald Trump. So that's just one of those funny things, like, man, Obama could have picked that. Bush could have picked that. Anybody could have picked that one out of the sky, but nope. Your progeny will learn 10,000 years from now the name Donald Trump. Oh, Tom, it's true. For our species, for all time, for as long as we explore the stars, we'll regale the name Donald Trump. So just throw that one in there.
Jesus,
he
wow.
He spent his entire career on the wrong side of history. Biden voted for the NAFTA disaster, the single worst trade deal ever enacted. He supported China's entry into the World Trade Organization, one of the greatest economic disasters of all time. After those Biden calamities, the United States lost 1 in 4 manufacturing jobs. We laid off workers in Michigan, Ohio, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, and many other states. They didn't want to hear Biden's hollow words of empathy. They wanted their jobs back. As vice president, he supported the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which would have been a death sentence for the U.S. auto industry. He backed the horrendous South Korea trade deal, which took many jobs from our country and which I've reversed and made a great deal for our country. He repeatedly supported mass amnesty for illegal immigrants. He voted for the Iraq War. He opposed the mission to take out Osama bin Laden. He opposed killing Soleimani. He oversaw the rise of ISIS and cheered the rise of China as a positive development for America and the world, some positive development.
Joe
That's why
China
supports
Beijing
Joe Biden and desperately wants him to win. I can tell you that upon very good information.
U.S. intelligence even.
China would own our country if Joe Biden got elected. Unlike Biden, I will hold them fully accountable for the tragedy that they caused all over the world. In recent months, our nation and the world has been hit by the once-in-a-century pandemic that China allowed to spread around the globe. They could have stopped it, but they allowed it to come out. We are grateful to be joined tonight by several of our incredible nurses and first responders. Please stand and accept our profound thanks and gratitude.
So, I mean, regardless of what he just said, I think that's incredibly persuasive. A lot of people are definitely, for better or worse, on board with what he's saying here. Details be damned. This is very persuasive.
Including me, have sadly lost friends and cherished loved ones to this horrible disease. As one nation, we mourn, we grieve, and we hold in our hearts forever the memories of all of those lives that have been so tragically taken, so unnecessary.
Wow.
In their honor, we will unite. In their memory, we will overcome. And when the China virus hit, we launched the largest national mobilization since World War II. Invoking the Defense Production Act, we produced the world's largest supply of ventilators. Not a single American who has needed a ventilator has been denied a ventilator, which is a miracle.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Good job heading the task force. Our great vice president. Thank you very much, Mike. Please stand up.
That doesn't make it good.
Better than not.
Depends.
We shipped
Well, that's another
hundreds of
topic.
millions of masks, gloves, and gowns to our frontline healthcare workers. To protect our nation's seniors, we rushed supplies, testing kits, and personal to nursing homes. We gave everything you can possibly give, and we're still giving it because we're taking care of our senior citizens. The Army Corps of Engineers built field hospitals, and the Navy deployed our great hospital ships. We developed from scratch the largest and most advanced testing system anywhere in the world. America has tested more than every country in Europe put together and more than every nation in the Western Hemisphere combined. Think of that. We have conducted 40 million more tests than the next closest nation, which is India. We developed a wide array of body treatment known as convalescent plasma. You saw that on Sunday night when we announced it. That will save thousands and thousands of lives. Thanks to advances, we have pioneered the fatality rate and you look at it and you look at the numbers, it has been reduced by 80% since April. 80%. The United States has among the lowest case fatality rates of any major country anywhere in the world. The European Union's case fatality rate is nearly 3 times higher than ours, but you don't hear that. They don't write about that. They don't want to write about that. They don't want you to know those things. Altogether, the nations of Europe have experienced a 30% greater increase in excess mortality than the United States. Think of that. We enacted the largest package of financial relief in American history. Thanks to our Paycheck Protection Program, we have saved or supported more than 50 million American jobs. That's one of the reasons that we're advancing so rapidly with our economy. Great job. As a result, we have seen the smallest economic contraction of any major Western nation.
Nothing left.
And we are recovering at a much faster rate than anybody. Over the past 3 months, we have gained over 9 million jobs, and that's a record in the history of our country. Unfortunately, from the beginning, our opponents have shown themselves capable of nothing but a partisan ability to criticize. When I took bold action to issue a travel ban on China very early indeed, Joe Biden called it hysterical and xenophobic. And then I introduced a ban in Europe very early again. If we had listened to Joe, hundreds of thousands more Americans would have died. Instead of following the science, Joe Biden wants to inflict a painful shutdown on the entire country. His shutdown would inflict unthinkable and lasting harm on our nation's children, families, and citizens of all backgrounds.
I don't want to.
The cost of the Biden shutdown would be measured in increased drug overdoses.
Can we like turn up the speed?
Alcohol addiction, suicides, heart attacks, economic devastation, job loss, and much more. Joe Biden's plan is not a solution to the virus, but rather it's a surrender to the virus.
That whole thing. It doesn't matter who was in charge. Whoever was in charge was going to get fucking lambasted for their response. It doesn't matter. This is just back and forth boxing at this point.
We are aggressively sheltering those at highest risk, especially the elderly, while allowing lower risk Americans to safely return to work and to school. And we want to see so many of those great states be opened by Democrats. We want them to be open. They have to be open. They have to get back to work. They have to get back to work, and they have to get back to school. Most importantly, we are marshaling America's scientific genius to produce a vaccine in record time. Under Operation Warp Speed,
there you go.
We have 3 different vaccines in the final stage of trials right now, years ahead of what has been achieved before. Nobody thought it could ever be done this fast. Normally it would be years, and we did it in a matter of a few months. We're producing them in advance so that hundreds of millions of doses will be quickly available. We will have a safe and effective vaccine this year, and together we will crush the virus.
I hope he's right.
He said it again.
At the Democrat convention, you barely heard a word about their agenda. But that's not because they don't have one. It's because their agenda is the most extreme set of proposals ever put forward by a major party nominee. Joe Biden may claim he is an ally of the light, but when it comes to his agenda, Biden wants to keep us completely in the dark. He doesn't have a clue. He has pledged a $4 trillion tax hike on almost all American families, which will totally collapse our rapidly improving economy. And once again, record stock markets that we have right now will also collapse. That means your 401ks, that means all of the stocks that you have. On the other hand, just as I did in my first term, I will cut taxes even further for hardworking moms and dads. I will not raise taxes. I will cut them, and very substantially. And we will also provide tax credits to bring jobs out of China back to America, and we will impose tariffs on any company that leaves America to produce jobs overseas. We will make sure our companies and jobs stay in our country, as I've already been doing for quite some time, if you've noticed. Joe Biden's agenda is made in China. My agenda is made in the USA. Biden has promised to abolish the production of American oil, coal, shale, and natural gas, laying waste to the economies of Pennsylvania, Ohio, Texas, North Dakota, Oklahoma, Colorado, and New Mexico, destroying those states, absolutely destroying those states and others. Millions of jobs will be lost, and energy prices will soar. These same policies led to crippling power outages in California just last week. Everybody saw that. Tremendous power outage. Nobody's seen anything like it, but we saw that last week in California. How can Joe Biden claim to be an ally of the light when his own party can't even keep the lights on?
Oh, Jesus.
Joe Biden's campaign has even published a 110-page policy platform. You can't get away from this. Co-authored with far-left Senator crazy Bernie Sanders. The Biden-Bernie manifesto calls for suspending all removals of illegal aliens, implementing nationwide catch and release, and providing illegal aliens with free taxpayer-funded lawyers. Everybody gets a lawyer. Come on over to our country. Everybody has a lawyer. We have a lawyer for you. That's what we need is more lawyers. Joe Biden recently raised his hand on the debate stage and promised your giveaway. He was going to give it away, your health care dollars to illegal immigrants, which is going to bring massive number of immigrants into our country. Massive numbers will pour into our country in order to get all of the goodies that they want to give, education, healthcare, everything. He also supports deadly sanctuary cities that protect criminal aliens. He promised to end national security travel bans.
Okay, so at this point, we're just fucking attacking Joe Biden, and yikes.
No.
Oh, my God. All right.
Haven't heard
I feel like
anything untruthful yet.
Okay, that's not the point. What the point is, we're not talking about anything at this point. This is a debate without actually debating your opponent, and obviously that's kind of where we're headed towards. If anybody's watching this live, I'd like to jump to a part where we can actually discuss something. So I'm gonna try to speed this up a little bit.
The wall down. How about that?
I don't think you can anymore. We're about to hit ludicrous
Biden also
speed.
vowed to oppose school choice and close.
This
all
is how
charter
I
schools,
listen to
Oh, Tom,
everything.
we know you-
ladder of opportunity for Black and Hispanic children. In a second term, I will expand charter schools and provide school choice to every family in America.
Dang it, chicken.
And we will always treat our teachers with the tremendous respect that they deserve.
We might catch up to live at this rate.
Joe Biden claims he has
Fingers
empathy
crossed.
for the vulnerable. Yet the party he leads supports the extreme late-term abortion of defenseless babies right up until the moment of birth. Democrat leaders talk about moral decency, but they have no problem with stopping a baby's beating heart in the 9th month of pregnancy. Democrat politicians refuse to protect innocent life, and then they lecture us about morality and saving America's soul. Tonight, we proudly declare that all children, born and unborn, have a God-given right to life.
Yeah, that's one of those fucking topics. Does anybody have any thoughts?
We had a good conversation about this on the Tomfoolery show the other day.
Yeah,
We had a call in and had a long conversation about this. So
That's what I thought. You guys really delved into this late-term abortion topic, and I'm reminded of, I don't remember the doctor. I don't remember from how long ago it was, but I believe he went in front of the Senate or Congress, and he sat there and really just delved into the grisly, nasty details of what it is that a late-term abortion actually is, because he was an abortion doctor, and he actually put it out there in grisly detail what that means, what it entails. And it basically boiled down to limb from limb, you are pulling this potential child out piece by piece. And it's a horrible ugly, grisly mental image. And yeah, I'm sorry. It's just one of those things that it doesn't sound good any way you want to look at it. And depending on how late term of an abortion you're discussing, there's just nothing good about it. And I understand all pregnancies are not the same, and some are pretty horrific, but the detail that goes into something as horrific as a late term abortion is one of those topics that's just not fun to talk about.
Yeah, I'm fully pro-life. I would go as far as to say it should be made illegal. Wow, I'm completely sideways over here. But
We always thought that was just your angle.
You should see me on my OnlyFans page. They think everything's crooked.
Oh, all right.
But
we're bringing this full circle.
Yes.
So in order to say that you're in favor of abortion and that you think it's a woman's right to do what she wants with her body, you can't pick and choose like where that line is drawn. Like you either believe it's her right to choose what she does with her body or you don't. You can't say, well, I think it's her right to choose what's done with her body until it just feels icky because now it looks more like a baby. And this is one of the problems that, like, no offense, Tony, but this is one of the problems that conservatives have when we make these pro-life arguments is that we're making a lot of them from this like very emotional state where we try to appeal to one's emotions by saying, oh, but they pull the arms and the legs and it's sad and it's a baby. No, it doesn't. And that's I'm not saying that, but but the pro-choicers are having this on a factual, scientific basis, and we have to meet them at their level, and we can have the conversation at that level. We're able to, and we can win it at that level. We just have to be able to get there. We have to meet them where they're at, because if they're going to say facts over feelings when it comes to abortion, we got to say facts over feelings when it comes to abortion.
No, you're right. It doesn't get better or worse at some stage. You're still talking about, it's still a potential life that's being taken regardless of what stage we're at. It can be at the early stage, it can be at the late stage. It's still a potential life. But yeah, when you dive into the horrific details, it does get more horrific and more ugly when the further along something is developed and then you terminate it. It's just ugly to talk about and think about. And yes, obviously, of course, it's an emotional investment at that point when you can say, okay, it's a fully formed body that you're choosing to not have. Yeah, of course, that's ugly. Of course, that's going to hit on an emotional level. But if you can separate your feelings from it when it's still like a tadpole or it's actually a fully formed human being, that really shouldn't be the decision maker or the deal breaker. And whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, that's really not it. It's once you really listen to what sorry, what, Phil?
I was just saying later, Brendan Roy. He was taking off.
Oh.
Later, Brendan Roy. Later, guys.
Thank you much. Thanks for jumping in.
Real quick, Tony.
Go ahead.
I think we have the same microphone. Can you take your muffin off?
Actually, I can. I think we actually all three do then. My goodness.
Yeah, I bought the same one Tony's got. So
sweet. Yeah. I've got those legs. I sit spinning those around all the time.
We're basically wiener cousins.
That's crazy.
I was not going to go that far. I was going to say that you can all hear the beautiful summer sounds that are our voice here on the Dog and Chicken Show. So, well, guys, if we would like to kick around this culture war dumpster fire issue for a little longer, we could. Or would you like to get back to turbo speed President Trump?
Yeah,
I don't know. I
it's-
think I want to talk about how we're all Eskimo brothers with the same mic over here.
Well, I think in a roundabout way we are, but no,
This is about as close as Tom gets to cursing around here.
the pro-life versus pro-choice thing that's an entirely different topic and an entirely different show, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that would love to chime in on those comments. And I think that's another topic for another time. But they brought it up.
Do check out the Tomfoolery show where me, Tom, and actually a very good caller get into a heated discussion on the issue. So definitely head on over to the Tomfoolery show on YouTube to check that one out. It was quite the discussion. But
Fair enough.
so
All right.
Onward and upward, gentlemen.
Let's try to trudge through this. Hopefully, I don't know. We'll try to get through
Real quick,
this.
before
Go ahead.
During the Democrat
want to
convention,
leave
the
you with
words
it.
"under God"
If
were
you're
removed
going
from
to
the
have
pledge
the
of
debate, I just want to leave you guys with this. If you're going to have the debate, try to come prepared to define what life is, because
Fair enough.
you're going to have to. If you're going to call it a life, you have to define life, and that's always the difficult part.
No, absolutely agreed.
So, well, if they're going to play Schrodinger's life.
It's part of it.
But the fact is, this is where they're coming from. Like it or not, this is where they're coming from. If the left gains power, they will demolish the suburbs, confiscate your guns, and appoint justices who will wipe away your Second Amendment and other constitutional freedoms.
There's the
Biden
Second
is
Amendment.
a Trojan horse for socialism. If Joe Biden doesn't have the strength,
Well,
stand up.
did he say anything that's untrue?
Marxists like Bernie
Yes.
Sanders,
When it comes to the
fellow
Second
radicals,
Amendment?
many-
Like
Yes.
what?
many was
Joe
like,
Biden's
what?
a socialist. That's what
Nobody's
And how
trying
is he
to
ever
take
going
away
to
their
stand up
guns.
for you.
Oh my God, California, they're
Most
banning
dangerous aspect of
guns
Biden's platform
every year.
is the attack on
New
public
classes of
safety.
guns are banned every year in
Biden's Bernie
California.
manifesto calls
And
for
they're
abolishing
taking them from
cash
them.
bail.
Red flag
There are
laws,
people-
they're taking them
yeah.
from them.
400,000 criminals onto the
Did
streets
Joe
and-
Biden do that?
When asked if he supports
Did Joe Biden do that?
Not
Did
yet.
Joe Biden help?
Yes,
Joe Biden wrote the goddamn crime bill. He's the reason a lot of people lost their
the
guns.
Minneapolis Police Department, a cancer that is rotten to the root.
He
Biden
also
wouldn't
supported the stop and
reject
frisk
reimbursement
bill.
for
Lots of people lost their guns from that too. That was messed up.
Yeah, that was bad in one state, but the crime bill was all 50.
Radical left will defund police departments all across America. They will pass federal legislation to reduce law enforcement nationwide. They will make every city look like Democrat-run Portland, Oregon. No one will be safe in Biden's America. My administration will always stand with the men and women of law enforcement.
Thank you.
Buyback is not
Joe
taking
Biden is
them.
a mandatory
Keep us safe.
buyback.
Mandatory
policy on his
buyback,
website.
distinction without a difference. That is mandatory.
One of these incredible Americans was Detective Miostas Familia. She was part of a team of American heroes called the NYPD, or New York's finest, who I was very, very proud to get their endorsement just the other day. Great people, great people. They were allowed to do their job. You have no
close.
crime in New York. Rudy Giuliani knows that better than anybody. Thank you, Rudy. 3 years ago on the 4th of July weekend,
Holy
Detective
shit.
Familia was on duty in her vehicle when she was ambushed just after midnight and murdered by a monster who hated her purely for wearing the badge. Detective Familia was a single mom. She recently asked for the night shift so she could spend more time with her kids. 2 years ago, I stood in front of the U.S. Capitol alongside those beautiful children and held their grandmother's hand as they mourned their terrible loss, and we honored Detective Familia's extraordinary life. It was extraordinary. Detective Familia's 3 children are with us this evening. Genesis, Peter, Delilah, we are so grateful to have you here tonight. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I promise you that we will treasure your mom in our memories forever. We must remember that the overwhelming majority of police officers in this country, and that's the overwhelming majority, are noble, courageous, and honorable. We have to give law enforcement, our police, back their power. They are afraid to act. They are afraid to lose their pension. They are afraid to lose their jobs. And by being afraid, they are not able to do the job that they so desperately want to do for you. And those who suffer most are the great people who they protect and who they want to
All right,
protect
real quick.
at an even higher level. When there is police misconduct, the
Guess when
justice
Tony
system
gets
must
back.
hold wrongdoers fully and completely accountable, and it will. But when we can never
Biden has an
situation
assault weapon,
where things
high capacity
don't go
magazine
as they are today.
buyback
We
program.
must never allow mob rule.
Boo.
Never allow mob rule.
Is it mandatory?
No.
In the strongest possible terms,
For
the
now.
Republican Party condemns the rioting, looting, arson, and violence we have seen in Democrat-run cities all like Kenosha, Minneapolis.
It
Portland,
says you either
Chicago.
have to register them or let the government buy them.
Okay, that's a
So-
distinction without a difference. Because if you're not allowed to own, hang on, if you're not allowed to own something without it first being on a government watch list or a registration list, then yeah, that is very much an infringement on your Second Amendment rights if you have to register them like that federally. So yeah, very much so. If you're not allowed to own it without a government permission slip, the right to keep and bear arms has been infringed.
No.
Very much so.
So
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, afraid
that's
so,
one of
man.
those.
Afraid
That's
so.
one of those
I mean,
hot button issues about gun control. Obviously, like the bump stock was one of the big ones earlier on.
just say
Now
no
we're
to the
talking
disproof.
about the high capacity magazines.
The Second
And,
Amendment disproves it.
No.
Oh,
What
wow.
are you talking about?
So we're okay. So now we're talking
Yeah, I'm sorry.
about
It's just a
how.
non sequitur.
No, what we're going to delve into here would be the legitimacy of something that was written 200 years ago versus
No,
how
it's
does it
legitimate.
stack up today.
No, it's
High
legitimate. It
I'm
is.
not
It's our
saying it's
Constitution.
not a legitimate question or an idea. What we're talking about, though, is we're talking about high capacity buyback magazine mandatory or not mandatory. And if it's not mandatory, that's one thing. But if people are willing to forego having something in their possession for a buyback clause, that's one thing. If
You have to register it though. Otherwise,
Yes, that's
you
not
have to
the
give it
same
up.
thing. To say like
Yeah,
one,
it is.
no, it's not. How is registering a gun the same as giving it up? Please wiggle out of this one.
If you are not able to own something without first being on a government permission list, your right to keep and bear arms has been infringed. No wriggle necessary,
How?
Tom. You're welcome.
How? You
Tom, it's
still
like
have
there's
it.
no input with you. I just gave you an
No.
explanation as to how, and you
did
just how?
No, you did not. You did
I'm
not. Do you
afraid
still
so.
have the gun? Do you still have the gun?
If you are not on the government permission list, then no, you're not.
That's not
If
what.
you-
no.
If you
That's not
don't
the same
register
thing,
it, then yes, you will lose your gun.
Okay, if you register it, do you lose your gun? That's the question.
If you eventually come cross with the government, yes. Yeah, you
Okay,
will.
so you
There's
register
only
it, you keep your gun. It doesn't say that you get your guns no matter what. No
right to
questions
keep and bear
asked.
arms shall
Everybody
not
has
be
missile-
infringed. If
It's
you
not
have to be on a
infringed.
government permission list, it's been infringed. I know
How?
you think it's just a tiny
How?
little infringement
You
because
won't
you
answer the
can't
question.
possess, you cannot keep and bear unless you are on the government permission list.
You won't answer the question. How
I
is
just did.
that?
I just did, Tom. Like
No,
I said,
you
it's like
did
there's no input.
No, you did
It's
not.
like there's
You will
no
not answer
input. You will not.
All right,
Like,
it's okay. You won't answer the question. It's okay.
I
You
just
won't
did
answer the
actually
question.
several
No,
times.
you didn't. No, you
but-
didn't. No, you
yeah, I
didn't. You did not.
Yeah,
I
did. Afraid
asked
so,
you
man.
how being on. You can't just keep saying being on the list is an infringement. And when I say how is it an infringement, you say being on the list is
Being
an
on the list.
infringement.
Sorry, it's an infringement.
That's not answering the question.
Sorry for you. That's just the way it
Being
is.
on the list is an infringement. How? Because being on
If
the
you
list is an
cannot
infringement.
bear
That's
an
your
arm,
answer.
keep and bear an arm without being on the list, that is absolutely an infringement.
Oh,
The fact
my
that you
goodness.
don't want to
won't
think
answer
that,
the
I'm
question.
sorry. That's just
It's
the way
okay.
it is.
You won't answer how though. You
Just
won't
did,
answer
though.
how. You just
I'm appealing to the audience. Do you think I've actually
slow
answered
down.
this question or
Phil,
not?
slow down for a second. Phil, slow down for a second. You're answering how is being on the list an infringement? Your answer is because being on the list is an infringement. That's
If
how
you're
you've
not
answered it 4
allowed
times.
to own, if you're not allowed to own, keep, or bear an arm without
Mm-hmm.
being on a government permission list, that is an infringement.
Okay,
straight and
where
clear.
in the Constitution does it say you can't be on a list?
Shall not be
or you-
infringed.
Right. Well, how is that an infringement? That's the question.
If you
though.
can't,
keep
own
saying
it
it's
without
an
being on the
infringement.
list, you're infringing.
Oh my goodness. You're not going to answer the question. It's okay.
Just,
it's okay.
dude, I have several
anybody
times.
else
You
wants
just
to
don't
attack-
like the answer. I get it. You don't like the
How?
answer.
No,
But
you're
that's
going
the actual
circular.
answer, dude. I'm sorry.
You're
That's-
using circular logic. That is a fallacy. You can't say it's
No,
an
I'm not.
infringement because listen, Phil. You can't stop
I'm listening
interrupting me
quite
because
well.
you know this doesn't make sense. You can't say it's an infringement because being on a list is an infringement. How? Because it's an infringement.
You
How?
can't
Because
own
being
it
on a
unless
list
you
is
are
an
on the
infringement.
list. You can't own a weapon unless you're on the list.
How is the list an infringement? That's
Because
what you won't
cannot.
answer.
All right, Tom. Listen to these words very carefully without you going, you won't answer me. If you cannot bear an arm without first being on a government list, a permission slip, then guess what? You have been infringed. Your right
How?
to keep and bear arms has because you can't own it unless you're first on the list, Tom. I know you don't want to accept it, but that's actually it.
You're using circular
Just go,
logic. You can't go in
All right,
circles.
Tom. You will hear no evil, see no evil, and speak no evil. I get it. Tom.
Okay. Hang on.
This is a logical fallacy. Like, this is obvious logical fallacy. You can't
You need to
use
look up a
circular
fallacy, then.
logic.
No,
You can't use circular logic. You can't.
I'm not using circular logic. I'm telling you quite plainly. If you cannot own an arm without first being on a government list, that is an infringement. Plain and simple. You can say no, all you want. Doesn't change that, dude. Sorry for you.
How is my shirt's green? How is your shirt green? Because green's a color. Well, why does that mean anything? Because my shirt's green. But how is your shirt green? Because green's a color. Yes, I know it's nonsensical. That's exactly what I'm saying. You are not using logic. You're saying it is because you won't explain it, though.
I just have several times, but you won't accept the answer. Tony, like I said, it's like there's no input with you. You just will not accept an answer that's counter to your narrative.
No, that's not an answer. Tony, please explain.
Afraid so, man.
Explain what he's saying.
All right.
Explain what he's saying, please.
Oh boy. Okay. So all right. So the yin to the yang of this conversation is what it boils down to is you're allowed to own whatever you want to legally purchase if you are willing to put your name down as associated with this firearm. The logistics being now we can track who this firearm belongs to if it is involved in some sort of crime. A lot of people are opposed to this because, well, what if my firearm is stolen, sold on the black market, and then it comes back on me? And black market does exist. That's we can't ignore that completely. But at the same time, as long as you're a law-abiding gun owner and you keep it locked up, that doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to be stolen or used by somebody who wants to use it for malice. But when this amendment was written, obviously we were talking about a vastly different time. I own guns. I own several guns, and I don't foresee any of them ever being involved in anything that would be more than target practice or hunting. And I don't think most people who own firearms would ever envision that, unless they do have some ill will in their heart and want to eventually commit some sort of crime with it. But it does go against what the original ideology was. And that's what people take a problem with, is putting your name on a list. That's what people take an issue with, because it goes against what the original context was. It's an infringement to say you have the right to do this and we can't interfere with that. So us requiring you to put your name on this list is technically an infringement. I understand the argument, and I'm not exactly opposed to the gun debate's a fucking crazy topic that we have touched on, and we should probably touch on again. But I think anything that's going to reduce gun violence, other than the fucking coronavirus, because that's done a bang up job, let's be honest, we need to probably entertain some ideas moving forward when we are allowed back out in public, because once we are allowed to gather in large populations outside of the home, it's going to spring back up and it's going to be an issue again. And this issue isn't going to go away. This debate's not going to go away. We're talking about something that was written when the country was founded, and we're many years later. Do we need to revisit it? Do we need to reevaluate it? Do we need to change it? it's a legitimate debate, and there are very valid points on both sides. As a gun owner, though, if I was on a list and something I owned was stolen and used to commit crime, commit harm on somebody else, and I was at fault because, well, you registered it, you're the one at fault, not the person we can't identify or catch. You're at fault because you purchased it and legally owned it.
I get that argument.
Is that fair to
Tony.
me?
No, Tony, I get that argument. That's not Phil's argument, though. He's saying just a list at all is an infringement. That no, you didn't say.
If you
mention
can't
any of
own
that.
it
Because
without
the
being
government
on
is
the
wrong.
list, if you can't
Hang on,
own it
Phil.
without first being on
Hang
the
on.
list, that's an
Hang
infringement.
on. Hang on.
Define infringement then, if we can
You
I don't know
can't
how to
own
make
it
this any
without being
simpler.
on the list. I've said it several times.
Define
If you can't
infringement.
own the firearm without first being on the government permission list,
Define what the
infringement.
word infringement
We already
means.
have a permission list. Felons aren't allowed to fucking legally purchase guns. That's already a list. I get it. A list of any sort, whether it's firearms or for fuck's sake, here, you want a list? Here's a list. Here's a fucking list right there. Right there's a fucking list. I have a license to drive. That's a list. I have a mortgage. I have a bank account. That's a fucking list. When these fucking laws and these amendments were put into place, they didn't have this country that we're in today in mind. Yes, times change. We evolve as a society, and things do need to be revisited. But what Phil is talking about is if you cannot legally own and purchase something without first giving your information and IDing yourself with a firearm, that is technically, by context, an infringement on your Second Amendment rights because you are giving up your right to own something regardless of what the government says. That's his argument. It's not wrong.
Yeah, choosing not to be on the list is giving it up. Yes. But the government has to give you
says I'm way
the
off.
availability.
Of course he does.
The giving you an option to say, hey,
kind of
you have say like you have to buy a gun. Okay. All right. This is an infringement on my right to own and bear arms because now I have to pay for it. Right. Right.
Right. Yeah. You have to purchase something.
Right. Right, Phil?
Yeah.
It's commercial good, so no.
But it's the same. You're saying because anything that like makes it harder for you to have the gun at all, and even just signing up for a list, is an infringement. So paying for the gun is an infringement.
No,
the government should now provide
shall
you
not
with
infringe. The government shall not infringe. Nice try, though. It was a nice try, but no. The government shall not infringe.
Right.
Yeah,
and
so no, you're trying
it's not an infringement.
Yeah, no, it's not saying you have an inalienable right to be provided a weapon. The government will not infringe upon your right to keep and bear. So nice try. So,
but they're not taking it from you unless you don't sign up for the list.
Are there or are there not people?
Infringement, the action of limiting or undermining something. So that's
are there or are there not people who are more than allowed to be citizens of this country who are prevented by legality from purchasing and owning firearms? Is that not a list?
Yes, that would also be an infringement.
And that's bullshit
not because of the list. Yes, not because of the list, but because they're not allowed to own and bear arms. But saying like I can't
I'd say
own
for both.
But saying like I can't own a missile, this is also an infringement on my right to bear arms. Because under some people's context of the right to bear arms, it means I'm allowed to own literally anything and everything that is arming me. I am now allowed to have that, which is not what the Constitution says. It says
2 points
you're
on
allowed
that.
to bear arms.
2 points on that. Actually, at the time of the Bill of Rights ratification, it was perfectly legal for civilians to own warships capable of leveling entire cities, cannons, and even they were called the puckle gun, but they were kind of a primitive Gatling gun. So we've actually had instances in our history where our citizenry has been much better armed. Hang on one second. Than they are now, and we didn't have those same blood in the street scenarios that we're all told that would happen. And the second point, well, Tony, go ahead.
I just have a bunch of comments I need to rattle off, or I'll be accused of not talking about them. Let me just. Holy shit! This guy. I don't know. So a list is a list, and a gun is a gun. Great argument, Tom. That's to prevent criminals from purchasing. No list is created from that, except for their name going onto a list.
Yeah, you go onto a felon list.
That's still kind of a list.
To me, once you've served your debt to society, you've served it.
Why does the government get a laws? What right do they have? The fact that they have a right to a list says they have more of a right than I do. Well, that's unfortunately part of living in the fucking country that we have built as a society and giving these people power. It sucks.
Yeah, you also don't get the right laws.
I'm misunderstanding.
But we do get a vote.
Checks. That's not a list. Okay, so checking into maybe it's not a list of names per se, but it's a list of individual history. And if your individual history says, yeah, you probably shouldn't fucking own a gun. Yeah, okay, fine. Maybe you're not paired up with another name that shouldn't own a gun, but it's a list of your many accomplishments that say you should not own a gun. I'm way off, and background checks are not in any way a list except for all the ways that they are. Have we sold a gun? Yeah. Yep. We can do a debate. Gun debate next week if I can make it. Perfect. And it does not go into a list. The FFL owner owns the paperwork, not the government. And it is
actually illegal for the government to digitally compile any FFL information brought in. And so that's at least one way to try and slow it down anyway. So, yeah, there is a very real...
my feelings with facts. I just want to get, the clarity out there that it's not as black and white as you want to make it. And that's not her feelings. That's not her
comment. Feelings. We need to pull up Urasama's comment.
I'm putting you all on the list.
We can pull up Jeff too, for that matter.
Which one?
SOB.
Nothing. I'm just kidding. Don't pull it up.
Draw Tom a picture. Maybe he'll understand. Make sure to use crayons. That one. Fuck, man. It's getting heated in here tonight, guys. And I got to tell you, it's still August. And
it's like
the temperature outside, it was like 85 today, and it felt like 100. And now it's getting really hot. And not hot and bothered like I like, because that's the hot that I like. I don't know. I'm sure Chicken has... Oh, hang on. We got more. We got fucking more, guys. Melanie says, so are you saying background checks are an infringement by definition of the Constitution, as Phil is saying? Yes.
Yeah.
Correct?
So yes, as Phil is saying, yes, 100%.
Okay. And Nick says FFL has no list. Suppress. Sorry.
There are states that do allow fully private transactions, and again, that's just one of those things that is a private business between two individuals. The state has no need or reason to shout out to Freedom State there, Melanie. Nick Dahlstrom, FFL has no list. Suppressors, you got to apply for a stamp. Wouldn't that be Nick, you're absolutely right, sir. The fucking
that's a list.
NFA, the Hughes Amendment, goddamn the 1968 Gun Control Act. There's a lot of infringements on the Second Amendment that have been gotten away with. That doesn't mean that it justifies more of them. But thank you for pointing it out, sir.
When it comes to the Second Amendment, it does say you have the right to bear arms. And I've used this argument a million times. As Phil said, we have letters from back in the day where they had said, like, hey, we want to put cannons on our ship. Is that okay? And they're asking the government. The government said, of course, you have the right to bear arms. Like, what do you mean? Why are you asking us? We've already said you have the right to bear arms. Why would you ask us if you could own a cannon? But the way that the Second Amendment is worded, It doesn't say you have the right to bear any and all arms at all times, no matter what. And so this is where the distinction lies. If I want to go buy a machine gun that's firing off, 50 bullets every 2 seconds, not allowed to do that. But I can have a handgun anyways. I can still get that. No
50
problem.
bullets
They're
in how
not
many
gonna stop me.
seconds?
I'm making something up. Bro.
Oh, okay. I was about to say,
Yeah,
you can do that with a semi-auto real easy, man. But
Yeah.
Now I remember the other thing. What I do want to make this draw a line of distinction, and some folks don't like it, but like it or not, this is something that some legal scholars do actually subscribe to, is it says the right to keep and bear arms, so anything that would be typical for a private soldier. It doesn't talk as much about artillery, and so that's where it does bring into your missiles and such. And like it or not, quite a few courts have taken the perspective of indiscriminate is banned. So like a machine gun can be seen as indiscriminate. A shot-off shotgun can be viewed as indiscriminate. A bomb is viewed as indiscriminate. And also like rigging a shotgun is highly illegal because it is seen as indiscriminate damage. With a semi-auto weapon, each bullet requires an active use of the user. So I'm not saying I fully agree with that analysis, but that seems to be the analysis that quite a few courts have taken, especially in the Ninth Circuit. So I'm just kind of, when you're asked about you can't do this, can't do that, I was just kind of pointing out what we're working with.
Sure. So as I was saying, it doesn't say that you can own any in all arms. So say like I agree with Phil that if we're saying you're allowed to own any and all arms, then saying you have to file this sort of specific gun with the government, that would be an infringement. If he could explain it, that would be great. But we'll settle for what he's using now. But we could just
replay what I said like you did the other night on the show. We could just replay what I said earlier.
We will.
It would go about as well for you this time as it did last time. So,
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. No.
Yes.
But the idea that you can still bear arms is not being infringed on. They're not stopping you from bearing arms by having you sign up this one specific type of gun. Your right to bear arms has not been infringed. If you can still have a handgun, you can still have other rifles, but to say this one specific type of gun has to be signed up for, you have to be on a list for just this one. Your right to bear arms is not infringed. You're still allowed to bear arms. It hasn't changed.
That's like saying
hang on.
No, that's like saying that the First Amendment still applies, even though we have some banned list of words and phrases. But the First Amendment is still totally okay because you could still technically speak. So that's one that I would bring as a counter, sir.
You would have to be able to speak freely.
Well, yeah, that's the point of freedom of speech.
Not
you
just
can speak freely.
Right. That's
if you have certain lists of words and phrases that are banned, you do not have freedom of speech.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying it would have to be speak freely, though, not just because you can speak, but you would have to still be able to speak freely. And if words are banned, you can't speak freely.
Gotcha.
What gun owners? Give me a second. What a lot of gun owners who own multiple guns, especially in this sort of area, are concerned about is that if you give an inch, they will take a mile. That's the problem that a lot of people have, because as soon as you start conceding your rights, they're worried, okay, well, we got this much. Let's see how much more they're willing to give up.
Sure. The slippery slope.
It is. It's a slippery slope, and it's not a tinfoil hat thing, because as soon as citizens give up a right of any sort, they're going to keep seeing how much more they can take, because it's all about control, because the ultimate goal is controlling the population for the greater good in the eyes of the government, because the government is the overseeing body. That's just how it works. And absolutely, I can see multiple reasons why we should say, okay, this person should not own this, or this, because obviously they check all the boxes that they're going to commit mass murder. So fuck them. They can't own a gun. I can also see, well, Jesus, these people are doing everything right. And why should we be infringing on their rights? And can we do it by a state thing? Or does this just simply come down to an umbrella thing where it's we're doing this as a nation? It can't, but it can. And that's where all this gray area comes from. So let's delve back in here real quick. Some of the comments. Melanie says background checks for guns only, or background checks, period.
Well, because we are talking about the Second Amendment, it would be talking about guns in this particular instance.
McCluckster says, Melanie, as a society, we have agreed and laws have been passed. We have to respect those laws unless we can agree to change them. I don't like them all. I think background checks are important and work. Beyond that, don't agree with most legislation has gone forward. And she responds, so does being on this list prevent you from owning said gun?
If you can't own the gun without being on the list, then yeah.
Okay. And we were talking originally, what kind of gun was it again? I guess I missed which portion we were talking about there, but I think this is delving in.
This was from, yeah, he had said, or Urasama earlier said, Joe Biden's website says that they're going to have a mandatory buyback for all certain types of guns. And so I went to the website and I copied and pasted what the website says right there.
Okay. Then let's go back. Tom had these things to say. Buy back the assault weapons and high-capacity magazines already in our communities. Biden will also institute a program to buy back weapons of war currently in our streets. This will give individuals who now possess assault weapons or high-capacity magazines two options: sell the weapons to the government or register them under the National Firearms Act, and it gives you the right to own it. By definition, sure.
Melanie said, so does being on the list prevent you from owning said gun? And I said, no, it gives you the right to own it.
Sure.
If you don't get on the list, and that's an infringement, if you have to get on the list to own it first.
And Ursama says, it's not mistaken. Aren't assault rifles a catch-all term?
And when Biden says assault rifle or weapons of war, that's not true at all. The AR-15 has not been utilized by one single military force in all the world. They are very similar to the M4 and the M16. But something I wanted to get into a little earlier about what we were talking about is if any of you ever read the works of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, I'm not saying he's a perfect philosopher, but there are instances where he does have things of interest. And for him, he talks about how liberty is an absolute value. You're not allowed to barter a little bit of it. It's exactly like dying just a little or being a little bit pregnant. And so that's why a lot of us gun owners like, no, this is an absolute value, regardless of whether the Second Amendment or any law, whatever it really says, every single human being has the inalienable right to repel threats to themselves and others. And any government or any state or any group that tells you otherwise is wrong. And that's an inalienable right for all of us. And so that's why we take this subject very seriously, sir.
It's a different argument and a different debate entirely. And I gotta stress this very, very quickly, how quickly this differentiates from person to person who might be watching this right now, because depending on what portion of the country you're watching this right now from, it is a very, very different world out there, depending where you hail from. Where we're from, we're talking about low population, lots of open land. It's just a different culture. You can own a lot of guns, and you can go and you can shoot them and never be endangering anybody or be in a threat of having those weapons endanger somebody because of somebody who has ill will. Where somebody else who is in a big metropolitan area who may own several guns, maybe legally or not, can attain those weapons and do something malevolent. It's a different world by going state to state. And that's where this debate gets really fucking tricky. And that's where the original amendments get really cloudy. I just wanted to make that clear. Melanie says, strongly believe that you guys could be responsible with owning guns. However, there are people out there that will not be responsible. That's why I think registration of weapons and this list is important. And unfortunately, that's a point, because we have gotten to a point in society where there are people who are looking to cause harm the most efficient way possible. And that's why you're seeing the ban of assault weapons, preventing people from buying bump stocks and things that make it more efficient to harm other people. And that's the big picture. And again, I'm part of the country where it's totally logical to say, we're not hurting anybody. Why are you punishing us? But it's not just that simple. Everybody has to get on board or nobody has to get on board. And that's where the debate comes from. And it sucks. It fucking sucks, because not every state and not every city is going to follow the same fucking amount of logical and rational rules. It's very much part of that tribalism.
It is an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, because you have two sides that will not move. The gun owners feel they've compromised plenty enough, and the folks who think we shouldn't have as many guns think that more concessions are needed. And no, Tom, that is actually the exact opposite of the argument I made. And actually, funny enough, Tom, Oxford English Dictionary, straw man, a weak imaginary opponent or argument that is set up in order to be defeated easily. Congratulations, Tom, on the first straw man. Probably not the first straw man of the show. That's the Oxford English Dictionary, my friend. Come on.
Yes, no, I agree with that definition. But you said if they have you sign up for a list for one gun, your rights have been.
If you can't own a gun without first being on the list.
Not any gun.
That's been my argument.
You said one gun.
If you cannot own, if you cannot keep or bear an arm without first being on a list, it's an infringement. Sorry, man. Hold on. That is my actual argument. So
hold on. The way you just said that's a little confusing. You said an arm. So that does that mean being on a list for any arms, or does that mean just one specific type of arm?
If you're not allowed to own guns or a gun, if you're going in to buy a new gun and they say you cannot buy this gun unless you get on our government permission list first, that is absolutely an infringement.
I'm sorry, I'm dumb. I don't understand very well. Is that one specific type of arm, or is that any and all arms?
If you are going to buy any gun and you cannot own it first without being on a government, if you want to buy a handgun to defend your house, if you want to buy a shotgun to go hunting with, if you want to buy a rifle for whatever right. What do you mean?
Any and all arm, or one specific? If they say you have one specific gun that you have to be on a list for, that is
at the point of sale. At the point of sale, regardless of what the gun is, that is actually an infringement.
Okay, you're right. So for one, okay, so that's his argument, and to me that means you have the right to own any and all guns. Maybe I'm confused, but to me, I would say you still have the right to own other guns without being on a list. They think that just because you're on the list for this one, it's an infringement. I disagree. I would say you still have the right to bear arms. That hasn't changed. It hasn't been infringed because you still have the right to bear arms. Hasn't changed whatsoever.
Yeah. And
if we're talking
sure, and I will agree with it. Yes, I will agree with the slippery slope analogy. 100%. I will agree with that 100%. I don't think it's a good idea to keep going down this line. I don't think that they should keep banning guns because they could take it as far as possible. Currently, 96% of Americans believe that anybody should be able to buy a gun unless they're a felon. So there's that, but 96% of Americans believe in the Second Amendment.
We got 4% more to go then.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Well, my mission.
Would you say 100% of people should be allowed to own guns?
If they have not been adjudicated mentally defective or have proven themselves to be a danger to themselves or others, absolutely.
That's not 100%.
I personally.
Well, no, that's just the way the law works. If you've proven yourself to be mentally defective or a danger to yourself and others, then they do
And
lock you up.
how do you prove that?
Judge will adjudicate that for you. That's the
But
way
they
it
do
goes.
when they convict you of a felony, they do adjudicate that for you, right?
And once you're a felon,
And that's a shitty
you're
thing.
on a fucking list.
Yeah.
And that's an infringement. I totally agree. That's an infringement. I totally believe that once somebody has served their debt to society, the state should have no further business with them. If they are truly a danger to themselves or others, they should remain locked up, pure and simple.
Well, I mean, to stay consistent with my current argument, if you are convicted of a felony and you're not allowed to own a gun, you're still allowed to own other sorts of arms like knives and swords and things like that, just not specifically guns. So technically, your Second Amendment would still be upheld in that case.
Melanie says I have a 19-year-old nephew with a perfect background check and could legally buy a gun, but he doesn't need to own any kind of gun. People like him are the reason why registration and this list you're talking about exists. And that's that gray area that unfortunately we are in that era of mental health being very, very much in question. And I'm going to bring this back full circle a little bit. First, let me make this point. I don't think that the 17-year-old in question in Kenosha was mentally unstable. Obviously, he had experience with firearms. He had aspirations to be among law enforcement ranks. He wanted to help spread some form of peace, whether or not his idea of that was skewed or not. But what we're talking about is, as a society now, we're seeing, I hate to bring this back to like video games and movies, but violence has been glorified a lot. Not just since we were kids, but even in the last, 10 to 20 years. I wanted to bring this up earlier, and I'm going to bring it up now. Let me pop this guy up real quick. Anybody who has a Netflix account and would watch, say, an action movie of any sort for about 2 months straight, I think. This particular movie would pop into my suggested movies to watch. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this movie poster, but this thing would pop up in my Netflix for 2-3 months, I bet, straight. And eventually I'm like, okay, curiosity has gotten the best of me. What the fuck is this? It didn't matter what I watched. I could watch a Care Bears movie, and this thing would fucking pop up in my suggested movies to watch. So finally I clicked on it. And it's exactly what I thought it was. It's about an hour and a half or hour and 45-minute long movie about a guy with severe mental health issues who eventually goes on a killing spree. And then for about the last 30 minutes of the movie, he dons a bunch of highly protective bulletproof vests and helmets and then goes through a small town type scenario and just guns people down in cold blood. Mm-hmm. And I watched the end of this movie. I didn't need to see the context beforehand because obviously it was just the spiral of a person who was severely mentally twisted. So you watch the end of this and it's just a guy going around and just murdering people in cold blood. And this was a movie suggested by Netflix, no matter what the fuck I watched. So it was fucked up. Eventually, I don't even know if it's still on there. I hope it's not. Because this is the type of stuff I've brought up in the past that the media glorifies tragedy on a mass scale. And it does 24-hour commentary about the tragedies. I get we used to report the news and we would talk about it and then we would move on. But now with 24-hour commentary on the news, with internet commentary being a 24/7 thing, it does glorify it. And unfortunately for people who are in a vulnerable state mentally, this sort of thing sparks in the back of their mind. And this is the type of thing that really lights a fire under some people's ass. So I think this is the kind of thing we need to get away from before we even address the laws about owning firearms. We can't glorify it in this kind of way and then expect people to follow the rules at the same time. That's not fair to people who are mentally stable. That's not fair to people who legally own things and do things the right way. That's not fair to people who don't wish to own guns and could be an innocent bystander if something like this happens. And
I mean, there's a bit of a gray area there where you say like guns are not toys, they're for self-defense, but then at the same time, guns are a lot of fun. Like it's not that simple. And so like you can't just say like, oh, well, you think they're fun, but you should stop playing with them because other people get the wrong idea and can't have trouble separating the two. They end up equating one thing that has nothing to do with the other. Like it doesn't make sense. If you want to go out in your backyard and shoot targets and shoot at bunny rabbits and shoot at pictures of dogs and shoot at pictures of Joe Biden and the shoot at pictures of women if you're an incel and whatever else you want to do, like that's perfectly fine. And if you want to play video games where you pretend to be a hero and you're shooting off the enemies and you're shooting off the weapons and all these other things, but when you're just, if it's like GTA where you're just walking around mindlessly kicking and killing and shooting and burning down all sorts of random stuff, then that's where it gets into this gray area where it's like, well, this is fun, there's nothing wrong with it, but it gives a bad impression.
That's the point. And you're right, it is a gray area because a lot of the people that are going to watch these films, play these games, and allow themselves to divulge into this fantasy world, a lot of people, that's where it ends. It stops there. They got to disjoin themselves from reality by watching a movie or playing a game. Most people can go, okay, snap out of it. I'm back in the real world. I would never do that because that's fucked up. I don't want to wish harm on other people. But for a fraction of people, it does unfortunately flip a switch.
When I've played GTA for too long and then I start driving, I do consider driving straight into semi trucks.
Well, there you go. I mean,
we've all run them off the road and watch the chaos.
Wrapped up this case.
We've all been there. But again, I gotta say, it is glorifying, and this is something brought up by the Clinton administration specifically when they did the war on video games and violence. I didn't understand it at the time because I was a youth, and I'm like, I'm playing video games. I'm never going to go out and hurt fucking people, and I'm still
damn youths.
But it's not about me.
Get off my
It's
lawn.
about the potential people, the very small fraction of people who could go out and do these horrible things. And we saw this happen, and this started with Columbine. When we started glorifying this, when we made these people out to be horrible, horrible people, but in some people's eyes, anti-heroes. We put it on a pedestal. We gave them names. We put them and etched their names and what they did down in history. People don't ignore that. Some people take that a different route and they run with it. And that's when we started seeing mass violence really kind of spiral off onto its own tangent. And that's kind of the point. There are, for every 1,000 people there are who would never dream of committing something horrible with any utensil that could be used as violent. There's a small itty bitty fraction of people who will take that torch that they were never handed and they will run with it for some ridiculous cause that they've created in their own mind. And that's where we're talking about people with mental issues that should not be ignored. And that's where the list and the registration and the background check debate really gets heated and really gets to be important.
If I can bring something in as an aside here, one of the most misunderstood philosophers of the modern era, Friedrich Nietzsche, he talked about the fact that eventually society will become so regimented and there will be so many rules in our day-to-day lives that there will come a need for simulated adventure for people to escape into. And that will be where people's sense of danger is actually outletted. So it's fascinating that somebody that before the Second World War was even able to foresee that this was going to happen. Our lives would become so utterly regimented that people flock to fantasy violence. And it's Grand Theft Auto 5 is the most successful entertainment release in all human history. That should tell you something about our instincts, apparently.
It's a human nature to have violent tendencies. It's where you take that outlet and filter that energy into that matters. And unfortunately, because we're not out there preventing people from buying video games or watching movies. We're not doing that. Nobody's going on a list to buy movies or buy video games and play them. We're not doing that, but it's still inspiration for some. And nobody's going on a list for that. But should they? If we're talking about putting people on a list to obtain firearms, shouldn't we be talking about putting people on a list for buying the means to make explosives or shiv knives or play video games and watch movies? It's the same concept because we're still talking about a means or an inspiration to cause bodily harm on one or multiple people. So it is a slippery slope, no matter how you want to.
You get into the sticky area of the idea of prior restraint, which is generally rejected, especially in the area of free speech in America. There are a lot of other areas in the law where we do generally reject the idea of prior restraint. So that, like you said, that is a very sticky and slippery area that you are talking there, sir. Tom?
I already did my talk on this one.
All righty. Well, then, never to let a captive audience go. So let me just get deeper into my brilliance, if you will. Or do we have
what?
I can get even deeper into my brilliance if you like. So.
All right. No, we completely fucking diverged from what we were doing before and gotten under the. Somehow we found a way to get on the Second Amendment.
We can talk about
every dumpster fire issue.
We can't talk about what we were talking about earlier, where I said I wanted to come back to this issue, where I said I do want to talk about how carrying a weapon should be allowed in public. Brandishing a weapon is a loosely defined term, where it pretty much says if you're holding it in a threatening manner, which could be just holding a weapon. If you're walking up to me holding a weapon to me, you are now brandishing a weapon. It seems threatening to me, right? If
so I'm brandishing the belt.
And so most people would say it's pointing it. Yes, most people would say it's pointing it. But the defined term is just doing it in a threatening manner, and just walking up to somebody is normally a threatening manner already. And so the kid with it hanging from his shoulder, this is like the grayest area I could possibly imagine. Because I would normally say if you have a rifle, it should be hanging over your back. If you have a pistol, it should be in the holster on your waist, right? But when it comes to these, I don't know what you call it, your side clip hanging from your shoulder,
Holster.
No. An actual rifle hanging from your shoulder. The way that the 19-year-old or the 17-year-old kid, a sling. Okay, so it should, like, that is about as gray as you could possibly get. Like, that is right in between what it is that we would normally call, holding it in front of you or having it over your back. That's right in between there. And that's like, I don't want to say I have a problem with it, but I don't not have a problem with it.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those instances where you're talking, again, it's a 17-year-old kid, and I know how contested age restrictions are from law to law to law, but this was, again, a 17-year-old by any definition going out into this setting with the firearm that he was I don't believe legally allowed to do so in that setting, regardless of it being an open carry area. He's 17. He's open carrying and injecting himself into the fold in this way. And it was a recipe for fucking disaster, no matter how you want to spin it. I remember seeing like a 2020 episode where there was a gentleman who told a coworker over and over and over about how, well, you can basically just murder somebody in cold blood as long as you say out loud, I feel like my life's being threatened. And he had a set of neighbors who would have parties every weekend, and he didn't like that. So he approached the premises with his handgun and said, oh, and he had a video camera with him, and he said, oh, I feel for my life. I feel for my life. And eventually he shot and killed one of those people. So it goes away from defending yourself in certain instances.
That guy did go away from murder, though. I remember that.
Seeking out the problem because you want to harm people. And I don't see any reason, especially in the civilian setting, why you need to go out looking for the problem. And yes, you can counter that with, do the people who take advantage of protests and find that opportunity to riot and cause harm on innocent people. Nobody should be doing any of that. Like, just don't harm other people. Just fucking don't do that. It should be simple. This shouldn't need to be said. I shouldn't be saying, don't fucking go out looking to harm other people just because you need to get your jollies off, whether it's killing someone or just punching someone. Why do you need to do that? That's not a form of therapy. It's not a form of releasing some negative energy that you feel the need to get out. It's just, why do you feel the need to fucking hurt somebody who doesn't need to be hurt?
Actually, I'm sorry, Phil, you were trying to get in a second.
I was just saying, it looked like he had either a 1 or 2 point sling that allows the rifle to just hang right in front of you. The advantage of that is it's just there. Your hands can be free. Like, this was developed for soldiers in the last 20 years as just a convenient way. But now, like, everybody does it, law enforcement, competition shooters. And it hangs here very easily. You can, use your hands, write something down, then very quickly be ready. And so that's what was going on with that. Now, fascinating thing, I was just thinking, it suddenly occurred to me. Now, I don't know, take morality or opinion out of this for a moment, but I was just thinking, man, his attorney is going to have a very interesting, well, how can you charge him as an adult if you're trying to charge him with minor in possession of fire? So, it's just one of those things like, this is going to set a lot of interesting precedents no matter how you want to look at this case. There's going to be some, like, just from, if you follow the Second Amendment like I do and that kind of stuff, there's going to be precedents set from this case going forward. So whatever precedents happen, keep it right
there
here.
There you go. You just mentioned it. This kid had all the intention in the world to be a law enforcement agent as provided by his social media presence. He was very intrigued by becoming a cop or some form of law enforcement agent. That's gone now. He was so excited to do that he took it upon himself to obtain the firearm and go out of his way to find the setting. So now, how do we go about trying him for killing other people? You went out and found the problem found you, and you defended yourself at one point or another. And now, if he was an advocate for owning and operating firearms legally, he's probably done more damage than he could have ever imagined. So no matter how you want to spin it, he shouldn't have fucking done it, because this does nothing but hurt law-abiding firearm owners.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Like I said, I don't know if he's going to go away for the murder charges, because the first video shows him running as fast as his fucking legs could carry him, and somebody throwing what he thought was. We'll find out, and when we find out what was actually thrown, keep it right here, and we'll let you know. But throwing what he thought was a Molotov. So I think in terms of that, I don't think he's going to do the 25 to life. I'll be honest. I don't think that's going to happen, but
no, probably
he's going to do. I imagine, the DA's got to think, all right, we got to give this kid some time. So I don't know what's going to happen here, but we will.
Go ahead, Tom.
If we're all being honest, you walk out, you buy a gun. You immediately start thinking of scenarios of where you might use this gun. Okay. Then you say, I'm going to go out in public with this gun. And you start imagining more scenarios of where you might use this gun. Then you're walking down the street with a gun, big gun, hanging from your hip. Everybody can see it. You're the only one around with a gun. You're thinking the whole time, everybody's looking at me because I have a gun. And they know I can kill them pretty quickly if they mess with me. Right? Like, we can all admit this, right? So
it's a bit of it's a flex move.
Yes.
He's a 17-year-old going into this setting. He didn't go in as an 18 or above person with a concealed carry permit with a handgun that he could use if he needed to. He went in as a 17-year-old with a very visible firearm slung over his shoulder, out of his way to insert himself into this.
So that's
why it's tricky.
That's where I was going to say is now add on top of that, this is somebody who's 17 years old. This is blowing their head up massively, walking through a crowd of people with a gun. Yes. Okay. This is a massively powerful feeling, walking down a road with a bunch of other people and having a gun very visibly attached to you. So now, with that said, people start attacking you. This kid was massively composed. Oh my goodness. He waited for people to actually attack him before he started shooting at them. Each and every person, he waited for each person to attack him before shooting them. Oh,
that's where age goes out the window.
Yes, what? I cannot believe he did that. That is amazing restraint. To have a pack of like 20 plus people chasing you, and then you fall, and you see them flying at you, and you wait for each one of them, one by one, to throw a skateboard at your head, to throw a bottle at your head, to pull out a gun and point it at you. And each one, he waited until it was obvious they had attacked him, they had assaulted him, and it was now time for him to shoot. He was so composed in that moment. He was so patient. You could not be more patient. I don't care if you're a Navy veteran that's, messed with guns for your entire life. That was impressive, dude. I like
You're right.
truly.
Did
You're
John
right.
Wick have a love child we didn't know about? Like, yeah, like,
Right.
especially, like,
Oh,
yeah,
my
John,
goodness.
Tom, you do raise
It
an
is.
excellent point there of like, yeah,
It
this
is.
kid kept his, like, now granted, like, Tom, I'm sure you've learned, like, you know, when you're learning to box, when you're learning to do jujitsu, whatever, the first rule is you're under fire. Keep your fucking cool or you're fucked. So
Okay, hang on.
I'm shocked that kid was able to do that.
We got a couple of comments here I want to touch on. You're right.
Yeah, Urasama wasn't his hometown.
He did, like, again, if you watch this video, it's very hard to watch if you know what the end result is.
Mhm.
We broke it down at the top of the show, but essentially, yes, he goes through the motions very much like he is I don't want to cliche this, but a soldier in a war zone.
Well
Again,
trained, yes.
He sought this scenario out with the tool he wanted. He got there, and when trouble found him, he composed himself, and he very specifically reacted to each instance as someone trying to defend themselves should, as someone who's felt for their life.
Yes, we see cops, grown men, 40, 50 years old, who are so trigger happy
with that composure.
Yes, the smallest little, they hear a grass blade flip and they start firing off in all directions. This kid,
but a 17-year-old,
yes, surrounded,
kept his composure,
surrounded.
So, yeah,
he had been running from people. It blows
Everybody's
my
a different
mind.
person. Everybody's a different person, and it's crazy to see how quickly people can understand the situation and react to it versus someone who's been trained for years and years and years and supposed to react to it. But
even after watching the video, my first initial thought was everything happened way too fast. I don't even know what just happened. But for him, everything slowed down. He took his time. He waited. Yes, it could not.
It was Matrix.
Yes, I hate it for the people who died, and I hate it that they chose to chase this kid. But my goodness, this was an exhibition put on.
Okay, that I can't disagree with any of that. But a few of the comments I want to touch on here.
Yeah.
3 felons were chasing him down with intent to do serious harm while people were burning down his hometown. I gotta say, I think he deserves to get off scot-free. Couple things let me touch on. 3 felons. He didn't know that. He didn't know these people. He didn't know their criminal history. And no, this wasn't his hometown. He went to this place to help defend it. Hang on.
One of those,
couple more.
Are we in a simulation here? They're all 3 felons.
It doesn't matter. He didn't know that. He didn't know that.
Right.
I know, but it just feels like the simulation winking at you.
His brain is not mature enough to grasp the concept of consequences of his actions.
Apparently they did.
He was more inept to understand what he was doing than some law enforcement agents, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
I read somewhere that his mother knew
training.
where he was going and that he was bringing a gun. That should have never fucking happened. He never should have been allowed to do that. And he's been training for this since he could pick up a PS2 controller. And unfortunately, you're seeing the other side of that coin that I was talking about earlier. People who've been training to cause harm versus those who have taken the other side of it and gone, okay, now I can understand the power of my actions and what I can do with this weapon. That's that slippery slope again. And I'm looking at it from a law's perspective. The law knows 3 violent felons were coming at the kid. They know it was extremely likely he'd have been badly harmed, of course. But in that moment, he was not thinking these are 3 felons because he did not know these people. Regardless of their criminal history, he did not know these individuals. They were all just charging him, and he defended himself with the weapon that he had at his ready. One of them was a 36-year-old father I saw. One of them was like 26. And I talked about this the other week when we were talking about the kid that was gunned down needlessly. And I have a kid the same age. And I'm like, that hits on an emotional level. Now I'm looking at this going, okay, now this guy is like in his mid-30s, and he's a father to multiple children. And now he's dead because he didn't need to be. because he made a stupid choice and somebody else decided they would play judge, jury, and executioner. So you can look at it from so many different angles. And it's the same thing with what the other instance of the Tom, what was the man's name that got shot by the cops in the back
Blake.
of the head?
Jacob
what I
Blake.
read from what I read from that was he
Damn it,
had
we're
a
having
knife.
a hard time keeping track.
Yeah, exactly. We can't keep track of all the names of the people that are gunned down by the police or other fucking people because everybody's in a scenario that they shouldn't fucking be in. This guy got gunned down in front of his kids. 3 kids in the car, shot in the back of the head. His 3 kids saw him die. Was he trying to hurt the cops? Was he resisting arrest? That's not the point. 3 fucking children, his children, saw him murdered.
So here's where the other side of the argument comes in. And this is where it gets very, very, very tricky. And all of you are going to be a bit conflicted. But you're standing in a crowd of people. You're at a protest. You're at a concert. You're wherever. All of a sudden, you hear gunshots and you turn around and you see a kid holding a gun with somebody else falling backwards. Okay? You see he just shot somebody. You don't know what ensued before. But that kid takes off running now. You maybe, with some sort of hero complex, which I likely have, probably go chasing after him. Okay.
Yeah, no, I was going to touch on this too. Go ahead.
Yes, you don't know if he was justified in shooting that person or not. He doesn't know that everybody around him isn't about to swarm him and start attacking him because they have no clue what just happened. All they know is that he just shot somebody. Though, as far as I understand, the person threw bottles at his head and everything, was attacking him first, and he was justified in that shooting as well. But you start running after this person, okay? Now, it seems as though 2 sides, seemingly justified in their actions, are about to face off. And they try chasing him down. He trips over and ends up shooting people who are just trying to stop someone who seemingly murdered somebody else.
I wanted to touch on that too, because when I first started looking into this a little bit, my reaction was the first headline I saw. No, yes. Let me clarify. Yes, no, he did not. Jacob Blake did not die. Apparently he's handcuffed to a bed, paralyzed. So that's not good either.
Really?
Yeah, it's not good. Yeah, that's not good either. But I want to touch on what Tom was getting at, and that was
even if he's a bad guy, even if he's like my example from the other day of Johnny Good and Billy Bad, even if he's the billiest and baddiest, the guy's paralyzed. Come on,
it's not good.
I don't even know what point you justify the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th shot or the 7th shot into a guy's back, whether a knife or not. No knife. But we'll go stay on topic.
It is. It's shots to somebody who's not coming at you. That's bad. But what Tom was saying, and this is exactly what I wanted to touch on, you're talking about a crowd of people who are already on edge, whether they're peacefully protesting, whether they are looting and rioting and wishing violence on people because that's just what they want to get out of their system. I had this thought when I first started looking into this a little bit. I got pissed because it's a 17-year-old and he defended himself. I'm like, in my immediate reaction is, well, Jesus, of course, he's in the right. He defended himself from dying. And what would you do in that instance? If you have a firearm and you are being attacked by multiple people, would you not defend yourself? Of course you would. But that's not exactly what happened. Now we're talking about a guy who entered a situation. Now we're talking about a kid who goes to high school, who defended himself against people who came at him. And Tom's absolutely right. You're talking about a situation where somebody heard a gunshot. And any time something like this happens, and we are in that era again of mass shootings, mass violence. You're in a crowded area and you hear somebody got shot, and you turn around and you see a guy with a rifle.
I'm sorry,
in a
pause
dark-
real quick.
Go
Just
ahead.
1 second. Just as I said, this kid planned for this and thought about what would happen if somebody attacked him while he has a gun. He's thought this through numerous times. So
Right.
is anybody who's going to a protest where they know that the protests have been violent and cops have shot on innocent people and all sorts of things, they have all thought through this already to where if
Yeah.
gunfires start happening, I know what I'm doing.
There you
Now,
go.
I can inject.
No, hang on. Let me finish.
I don't know if I can.
The people that went to this thing
Have you met me?
have been watching the people that went to this riot or protest, however you want to look at it. They know the world that we're living in. They've seen the news coverage. They've seen what's happening. And they still opted to go to this. And this kid still opted to go to this. So everybody had their initial intent in the back of their mind. But again, once a shot is fired, once the shit really hits the fan and people turn around and they see this happening, life gets real like that.
Mm-hmm.
Some people flee and some people go, oh, fuck. No.
Fight or flight.
I've got to stop this. Yeah, fight or flight. I've got to prevent this. Even if it means my life. Some people have that hero mentality and they will jump to action. This isn't saying they were trying to stop some kid from fucking preventing other violence. This is just people reacting to the situation. Like we said, he reacted in such a way that he successfully defended himself from multiple people, but other people that he was defending himself against reacted to him shooting off his weapon and did not understand exactly what was happening. They just saw a guy with a gun firing off rounds and they reacted to it. They didn't know if he was defending himself or if he was just trying to shoot a bunch of fucking people. So some of those people probably just did react and try to prevent other violence from happening. And when he reacts skillfully, artfully, and just defends himself to the point where he gets up, stands up, and just walks straight at multiple law enforcement vehicles, and they just go right by him.
Yep. That was weird.
It's fucking unreal.
Get on the sidewalk.
It's
Yeah. Now,
crazy.
if I may, something that I need to just, if a piece of advice to all the audience out there, there's something called the sheepdog mentality. And what the sheepdog mentality is there's three types of people in this world. There's wolves, sheepdog, and sheep. The wolves want to hurt the sheep. And if you're a sheepdog, sometimes the sheep don't like sheepdog because they have gnarly fangs just like the wolves. But the big thing is if you're going to be a sheepdog, don't scare the shit out of the sheep. And so that's why I'm trying to tell you, perhaps consider an investment in a concealable pistol. If you're considering buying a gun, not to be construed as legal advice, but it's something you can use to defend your home, and it's easier to carry on your person. And guess what? It won't scare the shit out of the sheep. This kid scared the shit out of the sheep, and
Yeah.
look what happened. The sheep fucking came after him. And so that's what I mean by, hey, sometimes just don't skip. Now, I have no problem with open carry. Open carry protests, to me, is one of those unique moments where the First and Second Amendment kind of join together. But at the same time, like when you're in one of these moments and you're just trying yourself just to get home, think about the sheepdog mentality. That's all I had on that front and regard, sir.
Yeah. No, it is. And
Thank you.
you got to remember, like I say this all the time, but I will say it one more time. You need to look out for yourself in this life because this is a crazy fucking world we live in. And you've got to look out for yourself. You've got to look out for your family. But you also got to remember how other people perceive the situation that they're in, and you've got to be ready to react in a way that everybody can leave happy. And that didn't happen here. It's crazily unfortunate how this unfolded, that this dude is now, whether he realizes it or not, scarred for life because he did murder people. And that doesn't go away. That's forever. And it's not going to get better from here. Like this is just another instance in a long line of just this year alone. Like, we went away from the mass violence to social distancing, and now resistance to violence against people who didn't deserve it is being met with counter violence to the violence. It's so ungodly stupid. Everybody needs to remember that when you go to one of these things and you rise up against the establishment, you're not actually like getting to the people who are oppressing you. If you're cutting off city blocks, if you're ruining and destroying people's property, you're not hurting the government. You're hurting other people who are a member of your society. I can't stress this enough. Like, we're all a part of the nucleus that is America, and then there's the government. So if you think by creating chaos and destroying other people's property, you're somehow destroying the government, that's just not exactly how it works.
Melanie, I mean, does bring up a good point. He had to get permission from his mom. She could possibly become an accessory. If he does get charged somehow. But this brings me back to the Ahmaud Arbery case, where two men are chasing down a man to make a citizen's arrest. And the problem is they're open carrying while chasing him down. If they're not, we may have had a completely different scenario in there. Yeah. All this guy knows is two guys with guns are chasing him. That's all he knows. Whether you did something wrong or not, you're not going to watch two guys with guns just chase you down and do nothing about it. I don't care what, again, whether you did something wrong or not, you are not going to watch that happen. So it makes sense that this guy turns around to defend himself, but it also makes sense that these guys go after him for in their head what is a justice move. You know, they're trying to make a citizen's arrest. If they hadn't been open carrying, we would have had a completely different scenario.
Open carry, especially with a visible firearm like a rifle, is it's one of those things. Like, and I've seen those videos where a guy who's just open carrying a rifle and he's walking home gets detained by multiple officers, and he's even a veteran, and we're talking about fucking guns drawn on this guy who served for the country, and he's legally doing so, and they're ready to tase him and shoot him in the face because he just has a weapon legally walking across the street. But then again, this was one of those scenarios where tensions were ridiculously high. And Melanie said, Tony, would you allow your 17-year-old permission to take a gun to a protest riot like this? Fuck no. My kid's not going anywhere near this shit. I'm going to slap him in the fucking mouth if they try to walk out the door with a goddamn firearm to go to something like this. Now, and that's my advice to anybody. Just no. You're going to take a weapon to a fucking hot pot like this? No. Fuck that.
I would say no as well. But as we've said, this kid seems to have some next level adult maturity to him.
A lot more than a lot of people have.
Yes, there's a chance that his parents give him a lot more leeway. They treat him a little bit different than you would treat your average 17-year-old. They act that, you know, they've trained him. They know that he knows what he's doing. They know that he's going to be responsible, and they think this is fine. He's just going to go out and feel tough for one day, and it's all going to be fine because we know that he's got a good head on his shoulders. It's,
and
you know,
unfortunately, no. That
I
did not
disagree with
happen.
that decision, but having a kid like that, I have no clue what sort of decisions I would make. I have no idea.
Now, I will say, Melanie, in regards to your question, years ago, I actually did teach my daughter how to shoot. It was with 22 shorts that go about 700 feet per second, which is just a little under the speed for standard BB guns. And she had proper gear, proper ear protection. Everything was done, so she learned proper discipline. And she's learned the basic mechanics on how to do it properly. And I've taught her that this is not a toy. This is something that can kill people. Personally, I've just kind of made the determination, unless I feel like her life is in threat beforehand, I was just going to give her a gift of a gun on her 25th birthday. I was going to wait till she's 25. First handgun will be that I'll give her as a gift, just because I remember myself at 18 to about 23, and Tony, you remember me. I was just the king of good decisions, right? all right. So anyhow, moving right along.
Let's. Okay, so we've surprisingly covered a lot, even though a majority of this was talking about the president's speech, and once he started talking about the Second Amendment, we completely fucking divulged into something else. But yes, let's wrap this up. Tom's pointing at that whole like, share, subscribe banner, and yes,
Just like
absolutely, the Tomfoolery
anti-air gun.
podcast you can check out on the audio and video platforms such as Spotify, YouTube, all that good shit. We'll wrap this up and everybody can plug their shit. But Tom, go ahead.
Go check out the Tomfoolery podcast. We got a bunch of great new episodes out about foreign policy when it comes to China is a new one. And then we also just put out another one about voter fraud and absentee ballots and all of the changes that could come if we end up doing mail-in voting, from an expert insider comes on to talk to us about the changes that Trump is making to the USPS and whether or not this could possibly lead to some sort of voter. I'm losing the word here. What am I thinking of?
Fraud.
No, but whatever. Voter infringement. They're trying to stop people from voting. So go check those out on any podcast platform. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. And newly, we are now also streaming on Twitch. We stream numerous times a week, and we try to ask very hard questions to dig deeper into philosophical questions and debate them. So go check us out, and make sure tonight you hit those thumbs ups and you hit those like buttons, and don't forget to hit the bell.
There you go. Phil.
Folks, this has been one hell of an episode. Thank you for joining me. And folks, as I'm known to say around here, all that being said, Melanie, hell to the no. If she wants to go out and protest with your own gun. Oh, wait, you can't afford one. But no, all that being said, thank you for joining us, folks. Everybody that was here, Urasama, Melanie, Chicken, everybody that I might have missed, thank you for joining us tonight as we got deep into all of the topics of the day. Be sure to like, share, subscribe right here at the Dog and Chicken Show. Be sure to join the Big Buckin' Entertainment Facebook entertainment magnate that it is, the group that is, folks. You need to join it. You know it's the right thing to do. Also, do not forget to stop by the Tomfoolery Show, where you can get a lot of deep dive omnibus and some incredible guests. Always good content coming along the way. Definitely check it out. And he even has a couple of us rapscallion ne'er-do-wells on from time to time as well. Also, check me out, KOE Nation, on YouTube so you can get all your KOE content. And last but certainly not least, this Sunday, join me and Tony and maybe Chicken for Payback on the Revolutionary Wrestling Podcast, where you can see your King of Extreme, Phil KOE, challenge that rapscallion, colluding ne'er-do-well, Tony G, and the evils of Chicken's mail-in ballots to try and steal the RWP Championship from me. But if you tune in this Sunday, folks, you will see history set right and your King of Extreme crowned champion. Tony, take it away.
Okay. Yeah, boo. And all that shit. Yeah, no.
And the King of the Evolved. Thank you, Melanie.
Yes. Hang on. I'll pop it up for you. There you go, Phil. King of the Evolved.
Thank you, miss.
He
Thank
is.
you.
Wow. Okay, yeah, we touched on a lot of stuff that I didn't even think we were going to get to tonight, but we did. Phil plugged a lot of stuff for us. If you like the conservative leaving and the presidential stuff, check him out at the KOE Nation. Great shit. You like Tom and his philosophical approach to things, and you want to see him debate Phil on some of the really nasty topics, check him out on the Tomfoolery. Sunday, Revolutionary Wrestling Podcast. We've got another pay-per-view to dive into. Going to be another barn burner, if you will. We'll trudge through. But as far as the show tonight, 3.5 hours in, we touched on a lot. We delved into the president's speech and really dissected a lot of it. We didn't get through the whole thing, so definitely finish where we left off and make your own decision and have some opinions ready when we go live again. Definitely check us out on the locals page, dogandchickenshow.locals.com. That's where we're going to talk uncensored. That's where we're going to talk really dirty and nasty, just how we like it, unfiltered, if you will. That's where we get to be a bit of more of ourselves, because Facebook and YouTube don't like that so much. And
that means Phil isn't there.
Well, Phil's there, but we're just awful fucking people. And if you like that shit, check us out there. And of course, check us out, facebook.com/bigbuckin. That's where you can get checked out with all the YouTube and Facebook stuff and all of our episodic shows, including the COVID Chronicles. I don't have a lot else to say, guys, but yeah, we definitely touched on a lot of stuff. There's a lot more to dive into, especially the gun debate, especially, unfortunately, the pro-life, pro-choice debate. We will get there eventually.
Great chat.
Thank everybody
too.
Yes, and of course, the comments were great. Keep them coming. They've been really, really helpful the last couple weeks. We can't do the show like this without the input from the audience. Thank you so much. Stick with us. Definitely keep throwing your input out. We love it. We appreciate it. And we will see you next week. Thank you. Love you. As Chicken would say, bye.
Bye.